Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Chen Ming drove the shuttle. He headed for the police station where Chang Xinghe was located at the moment, according to the news that someone had just sent him. He was thinking about the next move in his mind. This matter was half clear at this point, because although only Chang Xinghe was truly involved so far, but in fact, the purpose of the person who created this incident was definitely not Chang Xinghe. A simple truth. If Chang Xinghe was really to be punished, there shouldn't be so many news spread on the school network, and Chang Xinghe shouldn't have been sent to the confinement room like he was paraded through the streets before. These unrestrained behaviors, which were to let the news ferment, revealed one thing. That is, these news were deliberately released. And Chen Ming also believed that even if he was not there, even if he didn't care at all, Chang Xinghe would be able to come out of the police station intact. Someone was using Chang Xinghe as a target to attack, and then trying to take the opportunity to attract the attention of others. This other person could be someone from the Baiquan faction, or it could be Chen Ming himself. It should be himself. Chen Ming thought so. After all, the current time point is too coincidental. But what is the meaning of doing this? What is the purpose of attracting him here? Where is the person behind the scenes? What does he want to do? It seems to be targeting Chang Xinghe, but in fact, it is targeting Chen Ming, but he didn't come to him. What is he targeting? He will never give up halfway through doing things. There should be the next step soon. Chen Ming should go to the police station first and meet Chang Xinghe. On the way to the shuttle, Chen Ming took out the terminal and called He Gu to tell him that he would not be able to go to the headquarters of the Psychic Research Institute until tomorrow. Originally, He Gu should have been able to wait for him today, but now it is definitely not possible. After hanging up the phone, Chen Ming noticed that Chang Xinghe beside him lowered his head slightly, and his expression was still a little nervous and worried. Although she had been on the battlefield, for the middle and lower level officers on the battlefield, they only had to face the simplest life and death. What happened here is obviously more complicated. Chen Ming didn't have much to say, so he could only comfort her. Don't worry, Chang Xinghe will be fine. Yeah. The shuttle arrived outside the police station soon after. Chen Ming strode to the front desk of the police station. The female receptionist at the front desk immediately asked enthusiastically after seeing Chen Ming's outfit, "Hello, what can I do for you?" Chen Ming also looked at the receptionist and confirmed that she didn't know him and was not involved in this matter. So Chen Ming didn't do anything extra, just said, "Looking for someone. Is it because I can't contact him or?" "It's not that I can't contact him. He should have been arrested here." The receptionist's hand that was registering on the computer immediately stopped, looked up at Chen Ming, and asked uncertainly, "What did you say?" "He was arrested here. His name is Chang Xinghe. We want to see him as a family member." The receptionist was immediately in a panic. However, a police officer came over from behind the front desk and motioned the receptionist to go somewhere else. The new police officer looked at Chen Ming with an apologetic look and said, "I'm sorry. Chang Xinghe is temporarily inconvenient to meet with you because he is an important suspect in a serious injury case. It is inconvenient for us to reveal too much other information." Don't hit a smiling person. Chen Ming did not come up aggressively, but asked according to normal logic, "He is a suspect? What did he do?" "It's just a beating that caused serious injuries. The injured are still in the hospital for rescue. It's inconvenient to say more about the details." "Is there any evidence? Surveillance or something?" "There must be evidence, but it's inconvenient to say the details. Even if it's family members, we can only explain the situation clearly, and we really can't say more." "Even if you just want to see the surveillance?" "No." The continuous questioning made the police officer a little impatient. "It's really inconvenient for us to show the evidence to others, and even if we have it, we can't show it to you." "Yeah." Finally waiting for a clear answer, Chen Ming nodded calmly and turned to answer a phone call. The people from the Baiquan faction on the other end of the phone were just helping Chen Ming. They relied on the personnel within the police system and gave Chen Ming a temporary investigation authority to participate in this matter according to a legal provision. That is, all criminal cases involving military families and reserve soldiers. The relevant military departments can apply for an access authority to monitor the progress of the investigation of this case to prevent perjury and ensure that there will be no problems. This authority will not be too high in general, but it is enough to understand the whole picture of the case. Under normal circumstances, this authority will not be given to people who are related to the person at that time. However, Chen Xinghai is indeed a family member, but Chen Ming is not. At least before the marriage, Chen Ming is an outsider in legal terms and can fully assume this responsibility. The people of the faction also told Chen Ming the hospital where Liao Hongsheng was at the time. Keep monitoring at all times. After Chen Ming finished the call, the police officer in front of him quickly answered a call. During the response, his eyes looking at Chen Ming gradually became suspicious. After a few hours, he put down the phone and said to Chen Ming, "What do you want to do?" "Like I said just now, I want to see the evidence." "What type of evidence?" "The most direct kind. Monitoring will do." The police officer thought about it and said, "We don't have monitoring evidence." Chen Ming punched the table. He really wanted the psychic fluctuations to spread directly and control the entire police station. He personally searched the entire police station to see if there was any surveillance evidence. But the psychic power that existed on the entire planet suddenly locked onto him again, obviously sensing the changes in Chen Ming's psychic fluctuations. Tisk. Chen Ming had no choice but to take out a recorder from his pocket and press the play button. This was the audio he had just recorded in the school guard room. Everything the student who was guarding the door said was in it. Although he usually prefers to use psychic power in a simple and rough way, Chen Ming will definitely not be less prepared. "Do you need me to help you find the person?" The act of slapping the policeman on the spot did not make the policeman blush at all. Facing Chen Ming's questioning, he seemed to have no consciousness of having just told a lie, but said to Chen Ming, "Wait a minute." After that, he turned around, went to the back of the front desk, and picked up the phone. About 10 minutes later, the student who was guarding the school just now rushed to the police station. His face was nervous, flustered, scared, and terrified. Not only towards Chen Ming, but also towards the police officer in front of him and some other people who were not present. He came to Chen Ming and the police officer, trembling and speaking intermittently. I actually don't know anything, but he threatened me with his status as a colonel, so I was scared. So I thought about making up something to make him leave. What I said before was all false." Chen Ming knew that what the student said at this time was the words taught to him by others. He was just an ordinary student, and it was not his problem, but he still had to say, "You'd better think it through." But before the student could speak, the police officer next to him stopped Chen Ming and said, "Mr. Chen Ming, even if you do have this authority now and are a colonel, you can't threaten others in front of us casually." Chen Ming snorted and said, "If you say a reminder as a threat, then I have to ask you what you mean by this?" The police officer had a dark face and did not dare to answer Chen Ming for a while. Chen Ming didn't want to look at the police officer anymore, so he turned to the student and hung his colonel badge on his chest. "Tell me, what is the real situation?" I. The student who was called in had stiff limbs and dared not move at all. His face was full of fear, and he couldn't say a complete sentence. Chen Ming had only frightened him a little before, and at that time the student could still communicate with him fluently. Now, he stuttered when he spoke, so he must have been threatened by others. And the threat to Chen Ming was more serious. Chen Ming had already thought of many of the best ways to threaten a student. Seeing him with tears in his eyes, Chen Ming said reluctantly, "Forget it, go away." Chen Ming stopped asking the student questions and forced him to give a true answer. He was just an unlucky student who was assigned to guard the door and was threatened by others. It was really unnecessary. But even after hearing what Chen Ming said, the student did not dare to move at all, and instead looked at the police officer. The police officer immediately stepped forward, held his shoulder, and sent him out of the police station. After a while, he turned back and said to Chen Ming, "I will help you find the surveillance. Wait a moment." "What? Do you have a guilty conscience?" Chen Ming did not think that such a thing would happen in the world. The police officer did not respond to Chen Ming and disappeared inside the police station. Let Chen Ming wait outside. Time passed quickly, but the police officer did not come back. Even though Chen Ming kept urging him, he returned to Chen Ming with empty hands after nearly an hour. "I'm sorry, Mr. Chen Ming, the storage device for surveillance evidence is broken." Now Chen Ming knew why the police officer suddenly had a change of heart. However, he was not angry, but followed the logic of evidence damage and said, "It means that the evidence is gone, right? The evidence that Chang Xinghe was sent in is gone. Can we release him?" The police officer was completely a rogue at this time and said, "That's still not possible." Chen Ming laughed and said, "How was Chang Xinghe sent to the confinement room?" "Because the surveillance camera captured him fighting first." "Why can't you let Chang Xinghe go?" "Because the surveillance camera is broken." "Is this human language?" The police officer said with a stern face, "I should be speaking human language, but you don't seem to understand." Chen Ming is not used to sarcastic words, and the surging spiritual energy fluctuations surrounded him in an instant. And just as Chen Ming made a move, the spiritual energy fluctuations that had locked Chen Ming when entering the space station also responded immediately. They also entangled Chen Ming's body, locking Chen Ming's spiritual energy and preventing this spiritual energy fluctuation from being released. Chen Ming did not relax, but he did not go further to directly call for psychic energy. He maintained it within the original range. But the psychic energy fluctuation did not accept this result. Instead, it further compressed Chen Ming's mental power and oppressed Chen Ming's consciousness, trying to force Chen Ming to give up using psychic energy. It seems that even ordinary level 5 psychics may not be able to withstand this mental pressure. But Chen Ming is not an ordinary person. The quality of his mental power is quite terrifying. He has been training with various extremely strong negative effect spirit stones for a long time, and has also experienced the half-second experience of the Scarlet Dimension. The quality of his mental power is absolutely beyond doubt. Even if it comes from the oppression of a level 6 psychic, Chen Ming can easily bear it. But Chang Xinghe can't. She has been following Chen Ming from the beginning. When Chen Ming was targeted by a level 6 psychic, she could also feel the terrifying power from the outside world on Chen Ming. Even the aftermath of this power made her face pale. Her current strength is not enough to compete. Just when Chang Xinghe was about to collapse, Chen Ming's spiritual power instantly enveloped Chang Xinghe, protecting her from the oppression of this spiritual power that came from nowhere. As for the others, even if they did not need Chen Ming's protection, they did not feel the effect of this spiritual power at all. This was the targeting of the level 6 psychic. Chang Xinghe felt better immediately, but she immediately looked at Chen Ming nervously. Although Chen Ming's face showed a relaxed look, her worry did not decrease. "Chen Ming." Chen Ming waved to her, indicating that he was fine. He just stood there, resisting the oppression of the psychic. 3 minutes later, Chen Ming's terminal suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. Chen Ming answered it immediately, and a deep voice asked him, "What for?" "Check the surveillance. Just check the surveillance." "Okay." The phone was hung up. The restrictions on Chen Ming's spiritual energy fluctuations also disappeared. But Chen Ming could feel that the psychic was paying more attention to his situation. Chen Ming roughly understood why he was invited to the headquarters. Someone should have been collecting intelligence on his psychic power, and now it is finally confirmed that his psychic power can be discovered and blocked when it is first used. As long as the whole process is kept under attention, Chen Ming's psychic power will certainly not be unprepared. So when he came, there was such a level 6 psychic waiting for him, and it would definitely not be a psychic like Yin Xiong and Hu Yi who had just entered the level 6. Such a psychic was absolutely vigilant against Chen Ming. Of course, this level 6 psychic was not so unreasonable. He should know what was happening here. But he obviously had no intention of participating in it. The people below competed, it had nothing to do with him. Anyway, before the bottom line was crossed, he just watched. After the restrictions on psychic power were lifted, Chen Ming finally exhaled deeply. Comfortable. He had never felt so comfortable before. How uncomfortable he felt when he was restricted before, how comfortable he felt now that the restrictions were lifted. And he knew that this was only a short-term feeling after the level 6 psychic released the restrictions. Things were over, and restrictions would continue to come. Unless he had enough power to fight back, He had to abide by the rules set by the stronger ones. He had to become stronger. Chen Ming had some more insights in his mind. However, he did not show it, but said to the police officer in front of him who seemed to have noticed something, "Take me to the damaged equipment. Don't tell me that the equipment has turned to ash in just a few hours." The police officer's expression suddenly became tense. The order he received was to delay by any excuse, to tell any lie, as long as it could delay. Anyway, the higher-ups didn't expect Chen Ming to stay, as long as they could delay. That's what he did. And just now, he had deleted and overwritten the data related to the database, and finally destroyed the operation of the equipment. But in front of Chen Ming's psychic power, nothing about the mechanical equipment could be concluded. So he was still a little flustered. But he had no other interface to continue delaying. He could only take Chen Ming to the inside of the police station slowly. He said to a damaged data storage device on a table in the office, "This is it." Chen Ming walked into the office, looked back at the police officer who didn't avoid him, and didn't say much. Anyway, this person must know a lot, and he must know about psychics. The key to the problem now is whether Chen Ming can restore the device. And whether he can restore it, Chen Ming has no doubt at all, because his psychic power was previously blessed by the power of the dimension. The effect of the repair psychic power has also been enhanced. Chen Ming has specially tested it. At least for now, even if the equipment is turned to ash, as long as the ash is still there, he can restore it to its original state. Even if the data is deleted or overwritten, he can recover all the lost data. Chen Ming's psychic power acts on the device in front of him, and the metal liquid appears from the void and wraps it. In a few seconds, the appearance of the entire device is restored to its original state. Chen Ming also easily saw the picture in the surveillance. The impact caused by the power of Chen Ming's punch, Liao Hongxing's posture after falling to the ground, and his self-protection reaction. All can prove that Chen Ming is absolutely impossible to seriously injure people, especially serious brain injuries. This video alone can prove that Chen Ming is innocent to a large extent. If you insist, there is an interface, such as Liao Hongxing has a brain disease, which was knocked out by Chen Ming's punch. But far-fetched reasons cannot be used as evidence of conviction. Chen Ming could have taken out the surveillance to prove his innocence. But he didn't do it. Chen Ming also frowned and put the storage device that seemed to have been restored to its original state on the table, and shook his head slightly. If things were over so quickly, there would be many things he couldn't do. He wanted to show weakness, so that people would think that he really didn't get enough evidence, so that those who targeted him could continue the next step. Chen Ming turned his head and asked the police officer, "If the surveillance video is broken, then what evidence can prove that it is Chen Ming?" The police officer finally breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this question. The case of Chen Ming is still under investigation. As the only person at the crime scene, he is a major suspect, so even if there is not enough evidence, we can ask him to cooperate with the investigation. Major suspect? That means that Chen Ming must be kept here for at least 24 hours no matter what, right? The police officer didn't say anything, which was considered as tacit agreement. Okay, then let me go in and see him. I also have the right to investigate now. You can investigate, but if you want to see the suspect, only the team leader has this authority in our entire investigation team. There is no one in the bureau now. I don't have the authority to release anyone, nor do I have the authority to let anyone in. This is the rule. The rule that Chen Ming must abide by. Although he obtained the identity to participate in this incident through a rule that was favorable to him. But the authority of this identity obtained through the rule is not high. After all, it is impossible for the Legion to let the army completely suppress the police station, and the police station cannot be just a vassal of the army. Otherwise, the foundation of all government systems will no longer exist between the chaotic power. What Chen Ming has now is the authority of ordinary police officers involved in investigating the incident. If the team leader has the authority to find the suspect, Chen Ming really has no way to get around this. This feeling of being restricted is really bad. Just now, Chen Ming was physically restricted by the psychic fluctuations of the level 6 psychic, and now, he is restricted by the rules again. Chen Ming had nothing to say about this, so he could only ask, When will the team leader come back? I don't know, maybe tomorrow? Tomorrow? If someone is not in the police station after a serious crime, does that count as being absent from duty? No, because he went out to investigate the victim. Chen Ming frowned and asked, "Are you sure?" Uh, maybe somewhere else, but he must have gone to investigate. What a pity. Chen Ming turned his head back. If only this police officer was a little braver. There are people from their faction at the hospital, and they can be sure that there is no such team leader in the entire hospital. If the police officer dared to say that the team leader was there, Chen Ming would dare to directly question the team leader's absence from duty with evidence and take over the authority to do things. But now, it's a pity. Chen Ming could only ask for a current investigation report and did not continue to stay in the police station. Chang Xinghai saw Chen Ming coming out and immediately asked Chen Ming about the situation with concern. Because she was a relative of Chang Xinghai, she did not have the investigation authority and could not interrupt at all, and she could not follow Chen Ming into the police station. In addition, she had never experienced this type of thing, and no matter how smart she was, it would take time to adapt. Now she could only follow Chen Ming and listen and watch silently, trying to analyze the feasible way of doing things from the clues she could see. Although Chen Ming was watching at this time, his idea was still to consider how to contact Chang Xinghai. Anyway, force means are absolutely impossible, and the level 6 psychic will not let him do this. So how to contact Chang Xinghai? Chen Ming sat on a chair near the restroom inside the police station, shaking his legs impatiently and tapping the ground with his toes. His fingers on the armrests were also tapping on the metal armrests. Chang Xinghai, who had been focusing on the report in Chen Ming's hand, also gradually noticed Chen Ming's small movements. She seemed to hear some hidden patterns from it. Just as she looked up at Chen Ming's face, Chen Ming immediately made a gesture to silence her. The interrogation room was not far from the police station lobby, and it was not completely soundproofed. Some sharp sounds, or those transmitted directly through the wall, could reach the interrogation room. At this time, Chang Xinghai was still handcuffed in the small interrogation room. He didn't know how much time had passed, nor did he know the current situation outside, and he couldn't do anything. But the original cause of all this was himself. So he had nothing to complain about. Even if he was affected by the small and dim environment, he had to bear it. At least he could occasionally hear the noise outside, so that he would not be disgusted by this environment and have a headache. And at this moment, he seemed to hear a special rhythmic sound. It was the sound of something being knocked. However, just when he wanted to listen carefully, a sharp cry suddenly came from outside, completely covering up the sound. It seemed to be Liao Hongxing's relatives. At this time, the police station lobby. Chen Ming, who was sitting in the corner closest to the interrogation room, was just about to pass some information to Chang Xinghai by the code of sound. Outside the police station, two middle-aged people, a man and a woman, came to the police station and cried to the policeman that Chen Ming had just talked to. While shouting, "My son!" While crying, they complained to the policeman. Even crying and crying, they had no strength left and knelt on the ground. The middle-aged man next to him did not behave like this, but just kept comforting him. Some people occasionally passed by outside the police station and could see what happened here. This middle-aged woman who was crying loudly immediately attracted a lot of people's attention. However, Chen Ming looked very nervous. The information he got from others confirmed that Liao Hongxing was still in the emergency room of the hospital. Let's not talk about whether Liao Hongxing was really seriously injured or fake. But if the son was seriously injured and was being rescued in the hospital, normal parents should at least be with him in the hospital. At least wait until the vital signs are stable, right? Specifically, there are two situations. Whether it is really stable or the heartbeat is stable. But it's not too late to come to the police station to mourn at that time. Now crying, isn't the acting a bit too exaggerated? It's really a bit disgusting. It's not just the fake crying that Chen Ming is seeing now. There are also all the things that Chen Ming has encountered since just now. Chen Ming wants to find out who is behind the scenes, but most of his actions so far should be within the expectations of the people behind the scenes. After all, the rules are there, and Chen Ming can only do so much at most. He is obviously capable, but is restricted. Although Chen Ming can barely accept the restrictions, there is also a kind of repressed emotion growing in his heart. Now someone comes to provoke him, and the sharp crying really makes it difficult for people to keep a stable mentality. Even the middle-aged woman over there seemed to have heard something from the police while crying. Turning her head to look at Chen Ming and Cheng Xinghai, who was sitting next to Chen Ming and slightly tilted his head to look at the documents. A trace of extremely obvious resentment flashed in the eyes of the middle-aged woman. "It's all because of you, little beast." She suddenly got up from the ground with strength from nowhere and wanted to pounce on him. The police and the middle-aged man next to her couldn't stop her for a while. But Chen Ming reacted quickly. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Cheng Xinghai. He took out the revolver Ming from the holster under his clothes and put it directly against her forehead. Think about it carefully. This is to protect Cheng Xinghai and this middle-aged woman. Otherwise, Chen Ming didn't know if Cheng Xinghai would die on the spot if he accidentally used some force. At the same time, this somewhat extraordinary behavior was also Chen Ming's disguised venting of some of his dissatisfaction caused by the limitations of the rules. "Hey, put down your weapons." Several policemen immediately drew their guns and pointed them at Chen Ming. Several policemen in the police station only gave verbal warnings and did not shoot directly. And Chen Ming just turned his head and glanced at them and did not listen to them and put down his weapons. He even pushed the muzzle of the gun towards the middle-aged woman's forehead. Unfortunately, these policemen had no intention of shooting and still did not take any further action, but just kept giving verbal warnings. They just used the gun as a deterrent, or simply knew that a few ordinary pistols could not hurt a psychic. If they shot first, Chen Ming could use this as an excuse to directly counterattack and do some small actions, because he could still argue later. But if they did not shoot first, Chen Ming would not have a very suitable reason to make trouble. It was quite uncomfortable. The middle-aged woman who reacted burst into a sharp explosion in front of Chen Ming and fled away from Chen Ming. Chen Ming also slowly put away his gun, then took out his gun license from his pocket and showed it to the police around him. "Just now, she broke down first and tried to attack me. You should all have seen it, right? This is the rule. If it was the marginal star field, there wouldn't be so many things. But in the prosperous star field, this kind of thing is still somewhat necessary." Chen Ming accepted this rule, but he didn't like it, at least not for himself. The police officers also quickly put away their guns and appeased some ordinary people who were also working in the police station. It was as if nothing had happened. Chen Ming sat back in his seat and continued to look at the information of those who had contact with Liao Hongsheng. At the same time, he had to continue to wait for the team leader that the police officer said to come back, and wait for Cheng Xinghai's deadline for cooperating with the investigation to expire. He didn't continue to knock on the armrest because he felt bored. The process of waiting was making him, who was originally calm, gradually lose his patience. The process of waiting was making him, who was originally calm, gradually lose his patience. He just concealed the fact that the surveillance had been repaired by him, and at the same time he was planning to communicate with Cheng Xinghai. He was planning to let Cheng Xinghai cooperate with him to act a little and lure out the mastermind behind the scenes. Because there are only a few sources of information now. The people in the faction have not obtained any new information for the time being, and they have tried their best. Under the restrictions of the rules, they can only obtain information by actively falling into the trap. Chen Ming couldn't stand it. So at this time, that was already the original idea. He still had a lot of things to do, and he didn't have time to waste time on such things. This is not Kamo. At that time in Kamo, he could only wait for the help of the president, wait for Zhuo Jing to send him to the destination, and wait for an appropriate time to stab Zhuo Jing. But now he obviously doesn't have to wait. Why waste time here? Chen Ming became more and more angry as he thought about it. At the beginning, he really wanted to solve the problem properly. Just like when he just went to the branch, he would take the initiative to restrain his abilities and cooperate in doing things, both for you and for me. On the other hand, at the branches by Quan's side, the result of the cooperation is that Chen Ming is now inseparable from Bai Quan and even wants to go further. But at the headquarters, his friendliness and cooperation were exchanged for someone using the headquarters rules to target him. There is no harm without comparison. With the comparison, the more Chen Ming thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He had to find evidence to deal with things, and he had to use psychic power to find evidence. But the premise of using psychic power is that there must be enough evidence first. Finding evidence without psychic power is time-consuming and laborious. The rule means that if there is no evidence, psychic power cannot be used. It's a vicious circle. It's disgusting. Rules, 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 all rules. Chen Ming has been trying to do things according to the rules, but he abides by the rules and gets along with others. But people want to use the rules to mess with him? It's mutual respect. What's wrong with giving you face? Chen Ming found that some people think he is easy to bully because he hasn't taken any action for too long. Why did he always want to become stronger? Why did he pursue leaving the empire and surviving alone before? It's for freedom, for not being restricted by rules and regulations. This was the idea that came to him after he first realized the rules within the empire. In order to achieve this general goal, it is acceptable to abide by the rules occasionally, such as Baiquan. It is good for him to abide by Baichuan's rules. But being restricted by rules meaninglessly is a behavior that misses the point. Chen Ming suddenly realized that he saw through it. He has the ability to do things directly, so why should he think so much? He almost killed himself in the Scarlet Dimension for half a second before, not to get the power of the dimension and then have to be suppressed when he came to the headquarters. Chen Ming suddenly stood up and put a small USB flash drive that he had just made into Cheng Xinghai's hand. I have something to do, wait for me for a while. I'll be back soon. Okay. Chen Ming left the police station and boarded the shuttle. He quickly left the scene. In the police station, the police officer just turned back for a while and suddenly found that Chen Ming was gone. So he quickly got up and went to the back to report to his superiors. They tried to track Chen Ming's location, but Chen Ming's shuttle had already disappeared over the city. He was gone. Where did he go? When the police officers panicked because they lost Chen Ming's location, Chen Ming's shuttle had already arrived at the hospital where Liao Hongsheng was. The moment he stepped into the front desk, the metal liquid had already flowed towards the entire building under his feet. And the level 6 psychic who had been locking on Chen Ming did not notice this. The reason is also very simple. The composition of these metal liquids is silent alloy. Chen Ming was able to continue to control Wu Ping when he once controlled him to enter the internal environment of Zhuojing space station, which was completely isolated by the silent alloy. This shows that his psychic power can penetrate the blocking effect of the silent alloy to a certain extent. Although Chen Ming could not control the silent alloy in the past, all the mental power and psychic fluctuations he was in charge of would be blocked. But after entering the Scarlet Dimension, the situation changed. His psychic power, which was related to the Scarlet Dimension and could penetrate the blocking effect of the silent alloy, was further strengthened. His psychic power could penetrate the interior of the silent alloy through the power of the dimension. Just like Chen Ming needed the help of the Scarlet Dimension to transport things over long distances, he could now use the Scarlet Dimension to control the silent alloy. The silent alloy, known as the natural enemy of psychics, can only be controlled in front of the power of the dimension. Although these silent alloys may not be fully adapted to make some equipment, they are enough as metal liquid. The metal liquid that entered the hospital building penetrated the hospital's monitoring system and seized control of the database system. Chen Ming was able to follow the information about Liao Hongsheng that the people from the previous faction had helped to investigate and confirm the bed information of Liao Hongsheng's emergency room and intensive care unit. All these data were displayed in front of him in great detail. But Chen Ming did not find the same data that should exist in the hospital database. That is, the drug outflow registration data of the hospital's drug management center when rescuing Liao Hongsheng. This is a rescue that does not require drugs. Chen Ming did not need to go to the front desk. He glanced at the map of the first floor of the hospital and walked directly to the location of the emergency room. The door of the emergency room was closed, and the operating light was on. There was no one at the door. After all, Liao Hongsheng's parents were still crying in the police station. Chen Ming walked to the door of the emergency room without any hesitation and kicked it hard. The door was kicked open. What came into view was not the doctors anxiously rescuing. Instead, they sat next to the operating table and chatted leisurely with each other. Chen Ming's sudden arrival stunned several doctors. You. As soon as a doctor spoke, Chen Ming had already taken out a gun and pointed it at his forehead. Go on. I'm listening. The doctor pointed at by the gun quickly raised his hand and dared not move. The other doctors also stood up and retreated to the corner of the room, showing full cooperation. Chen Ming didn't feel comfortable at all when he saw this scene. Because if he took the normal way to investigate, these doctors would definitely not be so cooperative, and Chen Ming might not even meet these doctors. Guns. Sometimes they are more useful than other things. Chen Ming came to the side of the operating table. There was a corpse on the operating table, but it was not Liao Hongxing's corpse. Although it looked very similar, it was definitely not. Chen Ming stretched out his hand and pressed on the cheek of the corpse. While pretending to confirm the information of the corpse, there was a little bit of the worm tissue in his palm that had quietly devoured a small amount of the corpse's cells. The time of death of the corpse was confirmed in the morning. The time of the conflict between Cheng Xinghe and Liao Hongxing was noon. As for the real owner of the corpse, after comparing the gene sequence in the hospital database, a person who died in an accident today was quickly found, although the photo of the deceased was completely different from the corpse. However, the current plastic surgery technology is quite advanced. It doesn't matter if they look different. What matters is the genes. If the genes don't match, Chen Ming can officially confirm that the corpse is not Liao Hongxing. Chen Ming raised his head from the corpse. At this time, the security guard who heard someone say that there was a loud noise in the emergency room finally came to the door of the emergency room and saw Chen Ming holding a gun and threatening the doctors. Raise your hands? Chen Ming turned around and shot the gun in the security guard's hand, then turned around and said to the doctors as if nothing had happened, Give me your terminal. The doctors looked at each other, and one of them said bravely, Before entering the emergency room, our terminals were placed in the preparation room next door. You can go there to find them. Okay. Chen Ming did not continue to use force and turned around and left the emergency room. In the preparation room next door, Chen Ming easily took the doctor's terminals, although there were no clues in it. But as long as it existed in the terminal, Chen Ming could reproduce it again. These doctors need to communicate with people after all. It is impossible for the people above to give orders personally for everything. So Chen Ming also found the records of the doctors discussing with people from other departments to replace Liao Hongxing with a corpse in this terminal. The source is the director of the medical and health department of this department. The background is quite big, but Chen Ming has already done this step, and he doesn't care how high the status of the person he is looking for is. Chen Ming left the preparation room again, came to the hall outside. In fact, the gunshot just now did not attract much attention. After all, the headquarters has been peaceful for too long, and there are few criminal incidents, not to mention violent incidents involving guns. Also, because the emergency room is not very close to the medical treatment, many people don't know what happened next to them. They only saw the security guards urging them to leave. So when Chen Ming came out, the people in the hospital were still slowly evacuating. There are always people who don't take it seriously before seeing dangerous things with their own eyes. Of course, there are people who are really in critical condition and can't leave. When Chen Ming came out with a gun, those people finally found something wrong, and the crowd began to move to the other side without Chen Ming. Between Chen Ming and the crowd, there were 5 security guards surrounding him, pointing their guns at him. We have called the police. You'd better not move. Chen Ming glanced at him and continued to walk out. He did not want to delay the treatment of other patients. Under the ground, metal liquid formed by silent alloy flew out from the ground, destroying all the guns in the hands of several security guards. Without a gun, and Chen Ming also used psychic power that they could not understand at all. The security guards did not dare to follow Chen Ming at all. They could only watch Chen Ming board the shuttle and disappear near the hospital. Chen Ming's shuttle burst into a speed far exceeding the traffic law in the air, flying all the way to the headquarters of the medical and health department of the headquarters. The news of the hospital spread quickly. The terminal in Chen Ming's hand was soon fired by several people, but Chen Ming ignored them all. He had already reached his destination, the office of the director of the medical and health department. The shuttle ladder hovered outside the building of the medical and health department in a blink of an eye. After a shot shattered the glass, Chen Ming jumped directly into the office. The director of the medical and health department was talking to someone through the terminal at this time. At the moment when Chen Ming came in, the other end of the terminal said, "What are you saying? You just said that Chen Ming suddenly started to go crazy? Isn't that a good thing?" Just as the minister was about to say something, Chen Ming's gun was already pointed at him, and his other hand raised his index finger in front of his lips. The minister nodded nervously and dared not move at all. Even if he was not killed by this shot, he could not escape from a psychic. The other end of the terminal still did not realize what was happening and continued to speak. "Hello? Hello? Are you still there?" And while he was talking, Chen Ming had already touched the terminal, and his psychic power had controlled the terminal and locked the location of the communication signal. Chen Ming let go of the index finger in front of his lips and said to the terminal, "Good thing? I will soon let you know what is really good." The phone on the terminal was hung up. Chen Ming sneered and said to the minister, "Let's go." The minister said tremblingly, "Where to?" "Get on board. I have a few people I want to see." Although the minister was quite reluctant, he still reluctantly jumped onto the shuttle with the help of Chen Ming under the threat of gunpoint. The shuttle continued to fly to the location of the next person who spoke to the minister. It was not until Chen Ming's shuttle left that the security finally arrived at the office. But there was only a mess in the office. Chen Ming was checking the information he had just obtained on the shuttle. If he remembered correctly, that place was the Military Supplies Management Department of the headquarters, and the identity of that person was hidden when he talked to the Minister of the Ministry of Health and Medical Care. But Chen Ming had also confirmed the voice of that person through the interview videos of some important leaders of the entire huge Military Supplies Management Department. He is the Minister of the Special Materials Management Department. On the way to the destination, Chen Ming also checked the minister's terminal. Chen Ming was not interested in the records of bribery, but he found something interesting: an identification code for an online network meeting. There were 23 participants, numbered 1 to 23, and the Minister of Health and Medical Care was number 18. The records of the online meeting must have been deleted in the terminal, but as long as the information existed in the terminal, Chen Ming could completely restore it with psychic power. 23 participants, 23 people, none of them could escape. Chen Ming's shuttle was wandering around the city at a terrifying speed that no vehicle in the atmosphere could match. Soon, he came to the building of the Military Supplies Management Department. This is a huge office building. After all, the types of military supplies are quite complicated, and the number of management departments is quite large. And this is just a civilian department. The overall material dispatch, material distribution, and management must also start from other places. Of course, this is not the point. The point is Chen Ming's goal. The Special Materials Management Department is a subordinate department of the higher-level Military Materials Management Department. However, due to the nature of the management object, its status is relatively high. This department is the main department controlled by a faction of a general named Han Gu, and Liao Hongsheng is a member of this department. Since the office of the Special Materials Management Department is not near the window, Chen Ming found a window position and broke into the building directly. The employees working here have been evacuated, but there is no well-defended security team or combat robot here. Here, there is only one person in military uniform. At the same time, he is also a psychic. "Chen Ming, you are here as expected. It's almost time to end. The headquarters is not your branch, not a place where you can run wild at will. In my opinion, the headquarters is a place where people who have mastered the rules can run wild at will, even urinate and defecate anywhere." The psychic in front of him seemed to have the leisure to chat with Chen Ming and was not in a hurry to do it. "Yes, but this is the rule. I don't like this kind of rule. But in the headquarters, you must abide by such rules." As soon as the voice fell, the psychic fluctuations were stimulated. The body of the psychic in front of Chen Ming was gradually getting wet, and even the entire floor of the building was getting wet. At the same time, the psychic fluctuations of the 6th-level psychic in the headquarters, which had been silent for a long time, finally began to move. A pressure was stirring around Chen Ming. "It's finally here. Chen Ming said secretly in his heart. It's impossible for the 6th level psychic to stare at Chen Ming the whole time. He also has his own things to do. So if Chen Ming is the level 6 psychic, he will definitely use psychic fluctuations to lock his own psychic fluctuations, and only lock psychic fluctuations. Sometimes he will take a look at other times. After all, as a psychic, Chen Ming's greatest ability lies in psychic power. As long as he pays attention to psychic power, everything else is fine. So Chen Ming just used the silent alloy, which will not be discovered by psychics. But it only delays for a while. Although the level 6 psychic may not always pay attention to him, and it is not so convenient to contact him in many cases. But Chen Ming made a lot of noise, and it was almost time. He began to suppress Chen Ming's psychic power. And this time he would definitely not hold back. The surging psychic fluctuations were agitated, squeezing Chen Ming's psychic living space. He wanted to cooperate with the psychic in front of Chen Ming, who should have the ability to control water, to take Chen Ming down. However, a stubborn psychic fluctuation was still working on Chen Ming's body. A layer of metal liquid covered his body. A complete set of locust power armor was being manufactured. It looked like just an ordinary locust armor. But if you look closely, you will find that this power armor is made of complete psychic materials. And there is an additional layer of silent alloy shell on the surface of the power armor to block the power from the outside world for Chen Ming. The oppression of the level 6 psychic on Chen Ming disappeared in an instant. From this moment on, no one can stop Chen Ming. The huge amount of mental power and mental strength brought by the huge amount of psychic materials on his power armor made Chen Ming's consciousness active to an unprecedented level under normal conditions. And behind Chen Ming, outside the building, a tachyon spear was gradually being manufactured. Get out of here. In front of Chen Ming, the water vapor of the entire floor was gradually becoming thicker. Chen Ming could clearly feel that his movements in this water vapor had become difficult. This was not the limitation of psychic power, but the physical properties of his surrounding environment were changing. Although the psychic power of the psychic could not affect the silent alloy, the physical effects of the psychic power could still affect the silent alloy. And as the water vapor deepened, Chen Ming's vision was gradually blocked. This place would soon become a water prison. I don't know if this psychic is from the Special Materials Management Department or someone sent by the headquarters to restrict him. But this is not important. What is important is that the tachyon spear behind Chen Ming has taken shape. The power of this thing is not to mention a psychic. At this time, the entire building where Chen Ming is, and even an area of the city, will be destroyed under this firepower. It is enough to deter most people. But the psychic in front of Chen Ming didn't seem to care. Instead, he said to Chen Ming, "You won't do such a thing. We know you very well." Chen Ming's expression darkened. "You really think his kindness is weakness, don't you?" Chen Ming didn't respond to a word, but just activated the main control of the tachyon spear and let it start charging. The surging energy and violent particles are gathering on the energy beam of the tachyon spear. When the energy is accumulated to the limit and the particles are compressed to the extreme, it is time for the tachyon spear to fire. The water mist psychic in front of him finally realized that something seemed wrong. Chen Ming's state today was different from his understanding of Chen Ming. He seemed very angry. In this situation, the water mist psychic couldn't bet on whether Chen Ming would fire or not. If he lost the bet, it would be thousands of lives. Calm down a little. In response to the persuasion of the water mist psychic, Chen Ming said, "I am very calm, and I know what weapon can make you calm down. I ask you, are you calm now?" The energy glow behind him has overshadowed the light of the star that illuminates the planet under his feet at a close distance. Chen Ming, who was facing the tachyon spear with his back, was left with only a black shadow emitting a fierce breath in front of the water mist psychic. Okay, I'm calm. I'll make way for you. Do whatever you want." The mist psychic quickly restrained his psychic fluctuations, and the mist around him gradually dissipated. Unless he had the ability to directly control Chen Ming, he couldn't stimulate Chen Ming at this time. But Chen Ming's power armor with silent alloy on the outermost layer was also a problem. He could only attack Chen Ming through physical attacks that affected reality through psychic energy. Under normal circumstances, the psychic energy that could directly act on the opponent was completely unusable. I don't know how Chen Ming managed to make this thing. And the mist psychic turned his eyes to the tachyon spear behind Chen Ming, which was slowly dissipating energy. That thing was the biggest trouble. He shook his head, stepped aside, and motioned Chen Ming to do whatever he wanted. And under Chen Ming's feet, the metal liquid expanded again. The whole building was in his field of vision at this time. The director of the Special Materials Management Department, who just knew that he was Chen Ming's next target, was going underground through the elevator. But he was obviously too late to get there. Under Chen Ming's control, the elevator slowly slowed down, turned around, and returned to the floor where Chen Ming was. The elevator door opened. Several bodyguards immediately fired at the door. However, the strength of Chen Ming's power armor was there, and ordinary firearms could not have any effect at all. The director of the Special Materials Management Department shouted at Chen Ming in a cowardly manner, "I warn you." Chen Ming completely ignored his words and took a step into the elevator. After knocking out several bodyguards, Chen Ming dragged the screaming minister like he was dragging some garbage to the window of the building he had just broken when he came. The water mist psychic was leaning against the wall, talking to someone on the intercom. He saw Chen Ming dragging someone over, and after identifying who it was, he asked Chen Ming, "Is this what you want to do? What exactly do you want to do?" Chen Ming was too lazy to pay attention to him, and threw the person out of the window and onto the shuttle. In the air farther outside the building, a cruiser based on the tachyon spear that Chen Ming had just made was being built. Although the speed was a bit slow, after all, the mental pressure of a level 6 psychic still had a certain effect. Chen Ming himself could not feel the pressure under the protection of the silent alloy power armor, but his psychic power would still be restricted when it was released. So the speed of his making the tachyon spear just now and the speed of making the cruiser now was a bit slow. But slowness does not mean being completely suppressed, and the concept of slowness is also relative. In just 3 minutes, a complete, brilliant class cruiser with the strongest comprehensive combat capability among the cruiser models controlled by Chen Ming appeared above the city. After sending people to a small man cabin on the brilliant class cruiser that Chen Ming specially modified through the shuttle, Chen Ming also boarded the cruiser and continued to the next destination. At this time, he had also obtained the terminal of the director of the Special Materials Management Department and confirmed the network addresses of the 23 people in the online meeting again. Even though this online meeting was a secret meeting that hid the identities of everyone, the participants knew each other's identities roughly. Confirm the approximate address through network data, and then combine it with some deleted chat records after the meeting on the terminal. Cross-compare the communication content of the two terminals. Chen Ming has confirmed the identities of everyone. These people have to pay the price of disgusting themselves. Chen Ming's expression was quite gloomy, flipping through the information of each participant he obtained. Simply start in reverse order according to the number. The Minister of Health and Medical Care is number 18. In the Special Materials Management Department he just caught is number 23. Then the next one is number 21. Number 22 is not in the headquarters. Chen Ming will not care about those who are not in the headquarters for the time being, but he will personally catch everyone in the headquarters. But just when Chen Ming was about to go to the next location, the cruiser's sensor scanned that a shuttle was approaching at a high speed. When Chen Ming looked at the shuttle, he suddenly felt a sense of terror and a sense of danger that even his nerves seemed to be oppressed lingered in his heart. The level 6 psychic is here. Chen Ming immediately activated the tachyon spear and let it start to accumulate energy. After hesitating for half a second, the approaching shuttle immediately began to slow down and no longer continued to approach Chen Ming. And Chen Ming's terminal also received a new message. It was the number that talked to Chen Ming in the police station when he wanted to use psychic power. "I want to talk to you." Chen Ming turned off the terminal directly. Talk about nothing. He was busy with Cheng Xinghe's affairs for 2 hours and didn't even see some key figures. Now he took the initiative to attack for more than 10 minutes, and a level 6 psychic could come to his face. This obvious gap made Chen Ming resist any communication with others. His kindness and friendliness were not treated equally, so he could only do what he thought was right. He would never talk to anyone unless all the people were captured, because as long as it was not the last step, there would be people who would take chances. No one could stop him until he finished what he wanted to do. Even a level 6 psychic was the same. He must consider the casualties of civilians on the surface, and it would be impossible to hurt Chen Ming himself without large-scale destructive forces. This is the biggest advantage Chen Ming has now. To be honest, as long as he is willing to abandon his bottom line, Chen Ming can do many things easily. Chen Ming is usually willing to stick to the bottom line because sticking to the bottom line is his moral self-cultivation, and sticking to the bottom line can get the same reward for sticking to the bottom line. But now, stick to the bottom line. If he doesn't use the civilians in this city to threaten the people in the headquarters, he will be arrested immediately by the level 6 psychic who has arrived. Everything he does and all his demands will be buried by those people. Even if he is just a prosthesis here, he can't want to see such an ending. Chen Ming stood at the edge of the window of the brilliant class and looked at the shuttle, then started the jump engine and disappeared near the building. The next moment, Chen Ming appeared at the edge of the colony. There is a logistics center here. The person with the highest authority here is the next one Chen Ming is looking for, number 21. The cruiser appeared above the logistics center. Chen Ming didn't rush down to catch people directly, but released more than 20 shuttles in succession. The arrival of the level 6 psychic did make him feel a little urgent. Therefore, each of these shuttles is exactly the same as the one Chen Ming drove before. Each shuttle has an armored outer layer made of silent alloy and anti-scanning materials. No one can be sure whether it is Chen Ming or a mechanical core under this power armor. More than 20 shuttles dispersed immediately and went to different places in the city, which can be regarded as distracting some level 6 psychics for Chen Ming and speeding up the progress. Level 6 psychics can only lock Chen Ming's position through psychic fluctuations, but if they really want to take action, they obviously need him to come in person. Otherwise, he could have captured Chen Ming from a distance as early as when Chen Ming took action for the first time. But since he didn't, it means that his ability is still limited on the surface of the planet, at least within the scope of the colony. It is impossible for him to track all the shuttles that Chen Ming has sent out. So this is what Chen Ming has to do. Although there are certainly many psychics on the headquarters side, no one dares to track the shuttle. The people who track them have to face at least a robot made of silent alloy, or a robot controlled by Chen Ming himself, or controlled by the alpha-level afterglow cores behind Chen Ming. Without the strength of a level 5 psychic, going there is just giving it away. But the combat power that a level 5 psychic can exert on the surface is also limited by the environment. This is the headquarters, who dares to use too much power. What's more, Chen Ming's shuttle has the fastest speed in the atmosphere under the overload state of psychic stimulation. Unless they prepare in advance, basically no one can predict where the shuttle will go in advance. Of course, the participants in the secret meeting can also take the initiative to report what they have done, give the headquarters a reason why Chen Ming will go to their side, and make preparations in advance. But the things they discussed in the secret meeting are not allowed to be known to others. As for the feasibility of this action of directly looking for trouble with Chen Ming's cruiser, it can only be said that the cruiser is flying over the city, and any bombardment of large weapons can take away countless lives. Even if it is destroyed and falls, it will cause countless casualties. Unless the cruiser can be directly destroyed and all subsequent matters can be handled in the short time of more than 10 seconds when the cruiser falls, it is absolutely impossible for the headquarters to do so. But such an approach has obviously exceeded the capabilities of many people. No one will dare to attack Chen Ming's cruiser in a short time. All these add up to the confidence of Chen Ming in doing things. An hour later, Bai Quan finally finished the class with the old admiral and prepared to go to the cafeteria of the teaching park to solve the problem of dinner in a leisurely manner. Although he was not in a hurry, there were always people who were more anxious than him. Someone didn't even let him eat and took him to a meeting room in the military base. And the level 6 psychic who had been tracking Chen Ming from the beginning appeared here at this time. His expression was calm and no specific emotions could be seen. On his chest, there was a badge of the rank of a general. He glanced at Bai Quan, who had just come in, asked Bai Quan to sit down, and then reached out and pointed at the photo of Chen Ming on the projection behind him. Chen Ming has achieved his goal. He has captured a total of 19 managers from different departments. I tried to stop him. The general looked at the corner of the room, where there were two power armors surrounded by several researchers. Obviously, they were robots modified by Chen Ming. Several researchers were obviously quite interested in this robotized power armor. But I couldn't stop him. Chen Ming is here now, he said, and clicked on the map next to him. The location he clicked at this time was the building where the lecture hall where Chen Ming had attended the conference before was located. He blocked the entire building and let everyone go. Then he detained all the 19 people he captured in the lecture hall. What do you think? Although he asked everyone who was doing it, it was obvious that he was asking Bai Quan, who had just come in. Bai Quan glanced at the general in front of him and thought about it seriously. Oh? Question mark. Don't you have anything to say? Bai Quan spread his hands. What can I say? This is not something I did, nor was it caused by me. Instead, I want to see what he wants to do next. He doesn't need to do anything anymore. The regulatory authorities have already taken action. The people he took away will be stripped of whatever color underwear they like to wear within a few days. No matter how he did it, his goal must have been achieved. Bai Quan asked in surprise, the regulatory authorities didn't actually target Chen Ming? He had already prepared to find a way to get Chen Ming out and throw him to the branch so that Chen Ming would never have the opportunity to contact the headquarters in his life. Unexpectedly, the regulatory authorities did not go to trouble Chen Ming first, but went to find the people caught by Chen Ming. The general explained, if a psychic fight occurs here, the impact will be too great, and it is impossible to suppress it violently. We must first find out the reason why Chen Ming did this, and then see whether to appease Chen Ming or forcibly control Chen Ming. At this time, a lieutenant general sitting opposite Bai Quan suddenly said, how many years has it been since this kind of thing happened in the headquarters? Another lieutenant general echoed, yes, after all, we would never let in a level 5 psychic who was a threat to the headquarters. Who would have thought that Chen Ming would be like this? Bai Quan could of course hear the two people's sarcasm and immediately said, yes, who would have thought that Chen Ming would be disgusted on the first day he came to the headquarters? The general immediately stopped the quarrel among the people present and said, the reason why Chen Ming is like this has been analyzed. All the people he took away were people who joined together to plan to influence Chen Ming through Chen Xinghe. They succeeded in part and did affect Chen Ming. But they also brought about a counterattack beyond their imagination. Bai Quan added, Chen Ming just told me today that he was engaged to Xinghe. Someone later targeted Xinghe and spread rumors about Xinghe. Who wouldn't be angry? A decades-old thing may not, but Chen Ming is obviously not a decades-old thing. He still has sharpness and arrogance. Usually he keeps it hidden, but today he let it out. No one would think that a person who can survive in the Yuhui star domain would be so angry. He came and stabbed Yuhui. A ruthless person would not resist, right? People with means can avoid this sharpness, but if they can't avoid it, they must bear the wrath of this sharpness. The general continued Bai Quan's words and said, so we have to appease Chen Ming. At this time, even the regulatory authorities are biased towards Chen Ming. To be precise, they are biased towards you and your entire faction. Now is a special time point, and it is indeed they who started it first. Bai Quan asked, does that mean that these individuals should be treated as examples? Yes, killing the chicken to scare the monkey. The two lieutenant generals who were sarcastic to Bai Quan just now looked a little unhappy. But Bai Quan's face immediately eased a lot. So what's the matter with calling me here? I need you to contact Chen Ming and find out what kind of result will satisfy him. Bai Quan said with a very surprised look. It actually satisfies Chen Ming? I thought I was sent to appease Chen Ming and let him surrender. Okay, stop being sarcastic. This matter is my responsibility. I thought it should be a competition of conscience, so that Chen Xinghe, and Chen Ming can experience the dirtiness of political struggle. I shouldn't let this matter ferment. I misjudged Chen Ming's psychological bottom line. Resolve the matter as soon as possible. There is a cruiser parked on the top of the downtown area. No matter how much the news is blocked, it can't be blocked. Bai Quan nodded and stood up. At the same time, Chen Ming was in the lecture hall he had been to before. He stood on the podium, and the 19 people he brought with him were all sitting in the conference hall. The whole building was under his control at this time, and no one could enter here without permission. Chen Ming had never thought that there was such an easy way to solve the problem in the world. He didn't need to consider any rules at all. He was just a rookie in the field of rules. Others had so much experience. Bai Quan had spent a lot of effort to learn and integrate into this class, and once he realized the truth, he relied on his own ability to solve a hostile faction. That was Bai Quan's ability. Chen Ming didn't have this ability, nor did he want to have such an ability, nor did he want to get involved in anything in this regard. He just wanted to solve the problem as quickly as possible. As long as the problem could be solved, everything else was empty. Chen Ming inserted a data storage chip into the computer connected to the huge projection screen behind him. It stored all the evidence he had collected. All the logic of the whole thing was listed according to time, and all the things were written clearly, without any questionable points. Although all the ways of obtaining evidence were not necessarily reasonable and legal, after all, they were all evidence obtained by Chen Ming's direct violent means. But at least these evidences were real. Anyone can clearly understand the whole picture of the whole thing through these files, including the people sitting in the audience. All the information files were sorted out, saved, and backed up again. He even made 19 copies very considerately and handed them to everyone in the audience, so that they could hold them in their hands. Originally, Chen Ming started to deal with this matter at around 1 p.m. local time. But he stayed in the police station until nearly 4 o'clock and made no progress at all. And now it was already past 5 o'clock in the evening. It was only more than an hour since he really started to do things. He had solved the whole thing and found and caught all the culprits. If he really followed the rules, he would probably have to find a way to pick Cheng Xinghe up from the police station. But he went in his own direction, and the whole thing was completely solved in just over an hour, so there was no need for so much trouble. As for the follow-up was that he was already comfortable. The worst thing was that he would be arrested and lose his military status. But he was just a prosthesis in the 14th Corps, and the loss of the prosthesis was nothing. And is it that he lost the 14th Legion and felt bad? Or did the 14th Legion feel bad after losing him? This should be easy to answer. At this time, Chen Ming noticed that a special person came from outside the building. Bai Quan had already arrived at the door of the building. Chen Ming released the metal liquid at the door, allowing Bai Quan to enter the building and come to him. After Bai Quan arrived, he only glanced at the 19 people sitting in the audience, almost all of whom looked ashen, and then continued to look at Chen Ming and said, "The attitude of the headquarters is that I want you to appease you, and all things will be handled in your favor. In the short term, no one will target you again. All the victims in this matter will get due compensation, including you, of course. These people," Bai Quan pointed to the audience, "all will be dismissed and receive the punishment they deserve. Someone will take their place, as long as they are the right person. You may have some salary deductions at that time, because the headquarters will have to replace the things you control with new ones. But what does that matter? Otherwise, everything will remain the same." Chen Ming laughed. "Wouldn't it have been over earlier? As long as you have the ability to trample on the rules, someone will come to change the rules for you immediately. Of course, Chen Ming can't actually trample on the rules yet. He just has the ability to break the rules. Take advantage of the environment and his own advantages, such as the geographical conditions of the headquarters and the relationship with Bai Quan, plus some other reasons, such as the upcoming war of the mechanical race. All these factors combined allowed Chen Ming to break the rules in this environment and still get away with it. This is the result he wants. This is the benefit of power. Bai Quan has already stated the conditions that the Legion is willing to offer. This is indeed the result that Chen Ming wants to see, but it is not the result he can accept. The Legion still has not given up enough and is still thinking about bargaining. In short, it's just 2 words. That's it? I don't accept it. Chen Ming said to Bai Quan, "It's not against you. It's just that what the Legion has to do is not enough for me." Bai Quan spread his hands and said, "I got these promises before I came. Anyway, I'm just a messenger now. Just tell me what you want to say." Chen Ming didn't rush to say what he wanted, but asked, "Who is in charge of handling this matter now?" "Chiu Bowen, the general, is the psychic who was chasing you before." "General?" "Yes. I'm very curious about his attitude towards this matter as a general. I mean his attitude before I do anything." Bai Quan recalled what happened just now and said, "He said that he knew about this matter, but he chose to acquiesce because he thought it should be a conscientious competition, so that Xinghai, and you can experience the dirtiness of political struggle. He also said that he misjudged your psychological bottom line." After listening, Chen Ming said with disgust, "A general, I started monitoring me on the first day I came here and found out someone was planning to act on me. Anyway, I think he is trying to test my bottom line to see what level I can withstand, and then the side of my bottom line jumps. I must pay for the Legion in the Legion." "He came and also used Cheng Xinghai and Cheng Xinghe," Chen Ming said, and suddenly a question was brought in his tone to ask Bai Chuan's attitude towards his adopted son. Bai Chuan's expression was a bit low. He pulled Chen Ming to the corner of the lecture hall and said, "I look at things differently from you. In my opinion, this is a very targeted and disgusting trick, and it will not succeed. Xinghe will definitely come out soon. No one will remember the rumors it spread in 2 or 3 days at most, and it may even be debunked in less than a day. Even if this matter is purely handed over to me to handle, at most I can arrest a few people and finally reach some exchange of interests. We can get a little advantage here. After all, they started it first, and the matter is over. Of course, I fully understand your thoughts. It's normal for you to feel disgusted. You think it's normal that I didn't care about the galaxy. But I have to say that if he hadn't been in charge of the command of the mechanical race's Star War, I would have turned against him long ago. If I lose my identity, I will beat him up directly. My identity restricts me. I can't just think about myself and my family. I have to consider the survival of the entire faction. My old boss is going to retire. He raised me and trained me. Protecting his faction is my responsibility." Identity. Chen Ming has already felt the pressure brought by his identity. He is now just a colonel of the 14th Corps, and he has to face various complex problems and is restricted by various rules. And Bai Quan has already begun to experience this situation earlier. "Is this what you want?" "Of course this is not what I want, but this is what I have to do, and I have tried my best." Bai Quan's voice seemed to reveal fatigue. "Look at Xinghai. Why have I been hinting at Xinghai to you some time ago? The most important thing is that Xinghai must choose a marriage partner in the next few years. This is her fate that she cannot escape, so I must find the best one within such restrictions. You are the best one. Secondly, I don't know if Xinghai has talked to you about it. She likes the battlefield." Chen Ming nodded. "I talked about it. She asked me if I minded this kind of thing, and my answer was that she could do what she wanted." "You can say that, but I can't." Bai Quan sighed. "I am actually more resistant to letting Xinghai go to the battlefield, but I can't stop her. She will be a senior soon, and the mechanical war will start soon. Jialuo is her next position on the battlefield. I can't guarantee that she can survive on the battlefield unless she stays in the rear. But Xinghai won't be willing to stay in the rear. The last time she went to the battlefield, I did a lot of secret protection measures. But only small-scale battlefields can take protective measures. The main battlefield between the Galostar region and the Mechanical Clan is a real battlefield, without any protection measures. I can't protect her, but I hope someone can protect her for me." "You can protect her. You are a psychic." Listening to Bai Chuan's words, Chen Ming's tone subconsciously lowered. Psychics are not invincible. But protecting one person on the battlefield is enough. The reason behind these is interest. My relationship with you doesn't need Xinghai to marry you to get closer. But if you marry Xinghai, it will be good for you, me, and our entire faction." Although Chen Ming was disgusted on the first day he came to the headquarters, he really couldn't deny that marriage is indeed beneficial. The faction's manpower is not only in the headquarters, but also in other places where there are people from the Bai Quan faction. Chen Ming can get help. Because after the marriage, Chen Ming is completely one of the Bai Quan faction's own people. He is also one of the Legion's own people. Even if other factions in the Legion are targeting him, they must regard him as a member of the Legion. Therefore, When Chen Ming reveals the actions of other factions, the Legion must be responsible for it. It is these factors that push me to do these things. Everything I do is based on my family and faction. I am protecting my family and taking on my responsibilities. But I can't do everything the best and balance the two. I didn't receive the news about today's incident the first time. I only learned about the situation from you, and then I knew that this matter was aimed at you, not at the galaxy. I originally thought that you would find this matter troublesome and come back to me to let me deal with it, but I didn't expect you to do it directly. You are really disgusted. Today, you took out the main gun of this cruiser and pointed it at civilians. But to be honest, I don't think you will open fire. You haven't been really forced into a corner yet. Your personality prevents you from killing civilians. Although Bai Quan said the same thing as the water vapor psychic in front of Chen Ming at this time, Chen Ming did not refute this in front of familiar people. He really wouldn't attack those unarmed civilians, especially after he controlled and whooping to see what Jing did on Yunluoxing. But he still had to say, actually, I killed someone today. Who? Well, it's not quite accurate to say that I killed someone. To be precise, I seriously injured someone. Liao Hongsheng. His information is the easiest to check, and what is written on his emergency diagnosis will determine what he becomes. Chen Ming had released 20 shuttles and 20 robots before. 2 of them were intercepted by Chiu Bowen, and the remaining people were not enough for the 18 robots. So one of them went to the place where Chen Ming found Liao Hongsheng and helped him realize what should have happened in reality. The best outcome for him should be a vegetative state. Of course, the most likely outcome is that he will not be able to get off the operating table. That's good. Xinghe should be very happy to hear that. Bai Quan said and suddenly sighed, let's stop talking about family matters. We still have business to do. Okay, business matters. Chen Ming thought about it and responded to Bai Quan's question. Is the general only capable of this? Is this the only resource he can mobilize? These people. He pointed to a dozen people in the audience not far away and said, I have obtained the complete chain of evidence for everything they did and all the evidence, and all of them can be verified with each other. It's enough to send them all to prison, or at least remove them from their positions. Do you need the general to take over their positions? As for compensation, where is it? I only saw empty words, and Chang Xinghe is still in the police station and has not been released. I need to see a sincere attitude. Now, I can only say that the general came up with a temporary solution because I was forced into a corner. Chen Ming could not easily agree to Chiu Bowen's conditions. Because the current situation is that someone else came to cause trouble, and he resisted. In the end, he solved the problem and arrested all those who dared to cause trouble for him. Then someone came and gave him some benefits casually and didn't even bother to prepare an apology and wanted him to go back with his tail wagging? Are you dreaming? It would be fine if the general didn't know what was going on, but he had been following Chen Ming since he entered the headquarters spaceport and knew the whole story. Even so, he allowed his subordinates to do this, so he couldn't clear himself from the matter. Chen Ming is a psychic, a level 5 psychic, a psychic with top psychic abilities. He is not an ordinary person. If he is not respected, he will never accept this result. Okay, I'll go outside and ask again. Bai Quan must be on Chen Ming's side at this time. After writing down Chen Ming's words, he left the building blocked by Chen Ming again. He was soon brought to the General Chiu Bowen, who was nearby by the shuttle. Chiu Bowen was at a temporary command post on the roof of a nearby building, where he could see the building next to Chen Ming. Although the entire building had been sealed by metal liquid, at least he could see the whole picture of the building next to it. He was smoking at this time, and there were many cigarette butts in the ashtray next to him. Seeing Bai Quan coming back, he asked, what does Chen Ming want? He didn't say anything specific and told the Corps to give it, but he said he wanted to see the attitude. Attitude? I've shown him the attitude. Chiu Bowen skipped the topic of attitude, took a deep puff of cigarette and said, he told us to give it. This is the most troublesome thing. Can we find a way to calm Chen Ming down first? Let's not talk in this place and sit down at the negotiation table to discuss compensation. Chiu Bowen raised his head slightly and looked at the other side of the building, where Chen Ming's cruiser was hovering. Bai Quan knew what Xiao Bowen meant, which was to delay first. Let Chen Ming drive the spacecraft away first to avoid further negative effects. After all, if it was an ordinary military-type cruiser parked in the city center, the impact would not be that great. The headquarters had plenty of excuses to say it was an exercise or something. But the key to the problem now is that Chen Ming got a brilliant class cruiser, which belongs to Yuhui's cruiser model. A Yuhui cruiser appeared above the 14th Corps headquarters, which had been fighting with Yuhui's large forces for many years. This had an unprecedented impact on the headquarters. Even if Chen Ming did not actually open fire, the existence of this cruiser was the biggest trouble. As a general stationed at the headquarters, Xiao Bowen must bear the pressure from all sides. The Corps is not decided by a general. The only one who has the right to decide in the entire Corps is the Corps commander, and he must deal with this matter as soon as possible. That's why he was anxious to let Bai Quan persuade Chen Ming to restrain the spacecraft. But Bai Quan obviously couldn't do what Xiao Bowen wanted at this time. If the spaceship is taken away and Chen Ming is at the negotiation table, he will not have the advantage he has now. Do you think he is stupid? Xiao Bowen lit another cigarette for himself, extinguished the cigarette but in the ashtray, and repeatedly rolled it, as if venting his dissatisfaction. How can a non-stupid person do such a thing in the headquarters? Forget it, Xiao Bowen was about to say something when he suddenly noticed that a shuttle was approaching the top of the building. At the same time as noticing the paint on the outside of the shuttle, everyone present at this moment, whether Bai Quan or Xiao Bowen, all stood up. Xiao Bowen quickly put out the cigarette butt, and Bai Quan also put away his indifferent expression. Everyone stood straight and looked at the shuttle. The hatch of the shuttle opened. A man wearing the uniform of the 14th Corps, but without a military rank badge on his chest, walked down from it. The people present raised their right hands at the same time and saluted the person who had just come down. But the people who came down didn't buy it at all and yelled at Xiao Bowen, "Drag, keep dragging if you drag on. Go back home and drag." Leader. What the hell, Legion Commander? I'm just the maid who cleans your ass. Xiao Bowen lowered his head, not daring to continue talking. I've said some time ago that we should protect Chen Ming and not touch Bai Quan. At least before we finish the battle with the mechanical tribe, everyone should restrain themselves and stop thinking about internal fighting every day. If I don't come back for a while, you'll treat my words as farts, right? It's fun to make Chen Ming angry and run away, right? Without Chen Ming, you'll go up and fight the mechanical tribe with an iron rod? You have to force me to open a star gate and come back? Bai Quan whispered beside him. Is there a star gate on the front line? I stole Yuhui's some time ago, and it can be used after a modification. This is not important. After scolding, the Legion commander also knew that the most urgent task now was to deal with Chen Ming's affairs. He didn't know how many people in the entire empire coveted Chen Ming, but the people below were all doing stupid things for their own interests. Fortunately, he reacted in time, and there was no urgent business on the front line for the time being, so he could take time to come back. From now on, I will take full charge of this matter. I have 4 hours to deal with things here. Bai Quan, take me to see Chen Ming. I will personally apologize to him. I have read all the news on the way here. Chen Ming has already arrested all those who should be arrested, right? At that time, all these people who are related to him will be punished. As long as they are related, they will all be counted. We must appease Chen Ming. Okay. Bai Quan agreed decisively. The words of the Legion commander are always trustworthy. He will do what he says. And this is the attitude when doing something wrong. Although this is not the Legion commander's fault. But since it was someone in the Legion who made a mistake, he is willing to solve the mistake for his subordinates and give the person who made the mistake the punishment he deserves. This is the Legion commander's way of doing things. They all go in the direction of the simplest solution to the problem, and they are swift and resolute. The shuttle quickly landed at the door of the building where Chen Ming was. Bai Quan stood outside the building with the Legion commander. But at this moment, the metal liquid at the door did not automatically disperse, and the terminal in Bai Quan's hand suddenly rang. Chen Ming's message came over. Who's next to him? Captain, he wants to talk to you in person. Chen Ming, who was in the building at this time, hesitated. To be honest, He didn't like to let the captain in. The captain was a legendary figure. A man who could reorganize the garbage army near the edge of the star field and reorganize it into the largest and most powerful army in the entire empire. A figure who jumped from obscurity to a well-known figure in the entire empire. Such a person is terrifying. And he is also a psychic, at least level 6. Although the danger perception was not jumping, Chen Ming had already felt the heavy pressure. After thinking for a while, Chen Ming still opened the way for Bai Quan and the captain. The two soon came to the report hall. Chen Ming finally saw the captain in person. The captain looked to be only in his early 40s, which was quite young for his status. He didn't have a beard and was very clean. If he was not wearing a military uniform, but other clothes, he might look younger. But it was this young face that gave Chen Ming a heavy feeling. The Corps commander took the lead in greeting Chen Ming. "Hello, Chen Ming." "Hello, Corps commander. First of all, I must apologize to you for what happened today." The Corps commander put one hand on his chest and bent down to Chen Ming, not caring about the difference in status between him and Chen Ming. "There is a problem within the Corps, and I must take full responsibility." Chen Ming nodded slightly. The Corps commander has done enough. Then he also listened attentively to what the Corps commander would say later. He didn't want a blank check. He wanted something truly valuable. All the people involved in this incident will be dealt with, and all handling methods will be carried out in the most strict way. Chen Ming was not interested in the follow-up of these people, but he still listened to the Corps commander arranging the follow-up for everyone. Anyway, as long as they are involved in this matter, they basically have to go to prison for a few years or more than 10 years. Then, it was time for the specific compensation plan. For the specific compensation plan, let's talk about the less material ones first. The Legion can compensate you with the honorary membership of the Ship Research Institute. Oh! Chen Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. He was quite interested in the Ship Research Institute, because here, there are many battleship-level technologies. Although Chen Ming can learn from Chao Fan only masters some battleships, that is, the design blueprints of the Yue battleship. The technology of the human battleship is completely unknown. But battleships are not the most important. The manufacturing technology of the giant dock is also developed by the Ship Research Institute. After all, the ship that has been researched must be studied to find out how to manufacture such a behemoth. And compared to the battleship and the giant dock, there is another thing that is more important. Stargate. The design of the Stargate also comes from the Ship Research Institute. If you can join the Ship Research Institute, it will have benefits that Chen Ming can hardly match in other places. But isn't this just a nominal member? Of course, not a nominal honorary member. The Legion gives you an identity with extremely high authority. You can participate in any research project and laboratory at will. As long as you don't pretend to know something when you give instructions or leak the results of some researchers, it will be fine. The Legion leader spoke very directly, but Chen Ming didn't think his tone was aggressive. It was more normal. You can ask all the academic questions you need with this identity. They will cooperate with you. Chen Ming confirmed, "This is equivalent to putting all the Legion's technologies in front of me. Aren't you a member of our 14th Legion?" The Legion commander asked back and continued, "In addition, there are honorary members of the Psychic Research Institute and the Shining Civilization Research Institute, and the Legion can give you both." Shining Civilization. That is the real name of the destroyed civilization that Chen Ming has been in contact with. That is what they call themselves. The research institute that studies Shining Civilization. Chen Ming dare not imagine how many things he is interested in. As for the Psychic Research Institute, although Chen Ming has a relationship with Higu, it is definitely okay for him to go there for a while. But the identity of an honorary member can obviously avoid many problems. These 3 honorary memberships together cover technology, psychic power, and another civilization. To be honest, it is quite tempting. But Chen Ming did not rush to agree and continued to look at the Legion commander. The Legion commander did not disappoint him. "Do you have the list of supplies for the Psychic Research Institute? Pick 3 of the items on it. Choose any?" "Choose any." "Fairy tree seeds. You'll have to get them from the Psychic Research Institute later. I don't have any of these with me." The Legion commander smiled at Chen Ming. Okay, that's all. I don't think you're interested in the rest. I wonder if these will satisfy you. Chen Ming pretended to think about it and replied, That's it? Chen Ming's voice fell. The metallic liquid covering the entire building disappeared into the void in an instant. The Legion commander looked around with interest and finally turned his gaze back to Chen Ming. That's good, then I have to go too. I have something else to do. There will be supervision in the future, and they will handle everything well by then. If they don't handle it well? The Legion commander took out a banknote from the pocket of his military uniform, wrote a small line of words on it, and handed it to Chen Ming. Just call me and I'll handle it myself. By the way, I heard you're getting engaged in 2 days? Yes. I'm sure I won't be able to attend your engagement party, but I'll give you the gift. He touched his pocket again and took out something that must have been prepared in advance and handed it to Chen Ming. This is a box made of silent alloy. In this box are 2 spiritual stones that look very special. There is an inexplicable connection between them. And the characteristics of these 2 spiritual stones are love. Love. This trait is a special trait of a spirit stone that Chen Ming talked about with He-Gu when he was riding He-Gu's spaceship some time ago. Spirit stones with this trait usually appear in pairs. It has a heart-shaped pattern similar to infatuation, but it is softer. When 2 spirit stones are attached, the patterns on the surface can be seen to be connected together. Although its basic effect is the same as that of ordinary spirit stones. It has the same effect as ordinary spirit stones, which is to have some influence on the psychological state of psychics and provide a small increase in mental power. But the biggest difference between it and ordinary spirit stones is that it appears in pairs and has the special effect of love. When 2 love spirit stones are held by different psychics, the 2 psychics can build a mental power connection channel based on this spirit stone through the spirit stone. Based on their own spiritual power and mental power, they can generate mental amplification for each other. And they can also give each other emotional comfort. The effect is a bit similar to tenderness. In addition, this spiritual stone can also allow psychics to sense each other's mental state. This allows 2 psychics connected by the love spiritual stone to give each other more help in mental power enhancement in critical moments. The premise of all this is that the 2 psychics have love for each other to be effective. The higher the degree of love for each other, the better the effect. It is said that after the degree of love is high, psychics can directly communicate with each other. Although the Empire already has superluminal communication means, this ability is not too important. But the entire universe is not always full of Empire's superluminal communication base stations, so this ability is still valuable. And more importantly, when the degree of love between 2 psychics exceeds a certain limit, psychics can even use each other's psychic effects. Of course, the most outrageous ability is currently only a theoretical inference of the Psychic Research Institute. It is still unclear what the actual effect is. After all, the conditions for using this love spiritual stone are somewhat harsh. It requires both users to be psychics and have genuine love for each other. And the love trait will also be affected by psychic objects of other properties. That is to say, for ordinary psychics, they could have psychic equipment of one nature and spirit stones of another nature, separate them from each other, and use them only when needed. But the love spirit stone requires both psychics to keep wearing it for a long time and cannot be replaced at will. There are psychic couples, but many of them are purely political marriages for interests. Only a small number of psychic couples have pure feelings. This greatly narrows the scope of application of the love spirit stone and reduces the possibility of this spirit stone being studied. And the love spirit stone has negative effects. That is, when 2 psychics use the spirit stone to create a mental connection, this connection cannot be broken. Once it is broken, it will cause a great mental shock to the user. Once the love is lost, the connection will break automatically. Not only is the effect of the love spirit stone in name only, but if the 2 parties are not prepared, the consequences are quite serious. There is another more serious situation, that is, the death of one party in the love relationship. Once this happens, the soul of the other party in the relationship will suffer an unprecedented blow. There is still relatively little research on this, and there are only two cases even in the Empire. One case is a psychic couple with love spirit stones. After one of them died in an accident, the other psychic immediately fell into irreversible madness. The other case is slightly better. It is a psychic couple over 100 years old with love spirit stones. One of them is about to die of brain death due to old age. Brain death is a link that cannot be avoided by current technology. The couple chose to actively cooperate with the experiment of the Fanchao Research Institute. At the moment before death, the love mental power connection was disconnected by external coercive means. The result is that the other person who is still alive did not fall into madness, and even under the protection of the experimenters, it can be said that the person was not injured at all, and the mental shock from the connection was completely blocked. However, the psychic died of grief and old age not long after, which could be considered a natural death. But that was a special case. It was when the person was close to death and there was a psychic with enough ability to protect him, and he could ensure the safety of the psychic stone user when one of the two parties connected by the love psychic stone died. In other cases, death was always unexpected. Therefore, the love psychic stone itself can only be regarded as a rare thing. Under normal circumstances, it is only worth the same as an ordinary psychic stone. However, the Legion commander took it out and gave it to Chen Ming at this time, which was the most suitable gift. The value of the spiritual stone itself and its symbolic meaning, even if it is not carried for a long time due to negative effects, it is still an extremely suitable gift. Chen Ming and Cheng Xinghai are both psychics. Although their feelings are not deep, they have a certain foundation. It is not a pure marriage without any feelings. It can be used. Thank you. After confirming the gift, Chen Ming thanked the Legion commander and then put away the spiritual stone. According to his idea, this pair of spiritual stones should be made into engagement rings, in pairs, just right. Seeing Chen Ming decisively accept the gift, the Legion commander probably knew that this matter today would end here. As long as you are satisfied. Okay, then I really have to leave this time. I will see you again when I come back. After that, he turned and left the building and boarded the shuttle he took when he came. There was no dragging. The Legion commander is a character. He handled the matter perfectly, so Chen Ming did not feel disgusted at all. But at least Chen Ming was satisfied with the result, so there was nothing to say. At the same time as the Legion commander boarded the shuttle, the cruiser hovering in the sky was dismantled and disappeared in the air. Chen Ming and Bai Quan looked at each other and left the building afterwards. Although Chen Ming did not cause much damage this time, but at the headquarters, all the things controlled by Chen Ming had to be replaced, and some buildings that Chen Ming had visited personally needed to be rebuilt. Of course, these were not the parts that Chen Ming needed to deal with. If the Legion needed it, he could even help to dismantle the building and take away all the things he controlled. Anyway, it was just a matter of raising his hand. Bai Quan had a lot of things to do, and he separated from Chen Ming after leaving the building. He couldn't just pat his butt and leave with Chen Ming like this. He still had to deal with the aftermath, and he had to deal with Qiu Bowen alone. Then Chen Ming also had some things waiting for him to deal with. For example, get Cheng Xinghe out of the interrogation room. Chen Ming's shuttle quickly returned to the police station. As soon as it landed, Chen Ming saw Cheng Xinghai rushing to him anxiously, grabbing his hand and asking, "Are you okay?" Chen Ming opened his arms and showed himself intact. "Isn't it good?" Cheng Xinghai breathed a sigh of relief. "I'm fine." "But why did you do such a dangerous thing?" Obviously, Cheng Xinghai also saw the Yuhui cruiser in the sky above the center of the headquarters. She knew without thinking that it was definitely Chen Ming who did it. The cruiser suddenly jumped halfway, and Chen Ming didn't come back, which made her worried for a long time, fearing that Chen Ming would get into trouble. When the cruiser jumped to the sky above the city center again, she was even more worried that Chen Ming would do something irrational. Although the worst-case scenario did not happen during these two time periods, when Chen Ming dismantled the cruiser and saw it torn into pieces, Cheng Xinghai's worries reached their peak. Fortunately, Chen Ming finally appeared in front of him intact. Facing Cheng Xinghai's worries, Chen Ming didn't know what to say. Someone cared about his safety, which made him feel cared for, but also made him feel pressured. When you are alone, you can do whatever you want. If you die, It's your own problem. But if someone cares about him, then he must consider the consequences of his actions. Fortunately, Chen Ming is now out there with prostheses, so Chen Ming is not worried that he will accidentally kill the prosthesis and make people too sad. It's okay. You see I'm back? Yeah. Chang Xinghai didn't persuade Chen Ming too much not to do dangerous things. Chen Ming would be responsible for himself. At least he came back safely. Then now that the matter has been resolved, let's go and get Chang Xinghai out. Chang Xinghai didn't expect Chen Ming to give her this answer. Has it been resolved? Yes, it took a little effort, but at least the result is good. What did you do? I arrested a few people, threatened others with the cruiser, and then the Corps commander came back to talk to me just now, and the matter was resolved. Yes, that's it. Chang Xinghai stretched out his hand to cover his slightly open mouth and said, It's not that simple. It's really dangerous. It's okay. If I hadn't done this, we should have just had dinner, and we're still thinking about how to get Chang Xinghai out of the police station. Well, Chang Xinghai knew that Chen Ming was right. If Chen Ming didn't do anything, this would be the most likely result. But she also knew that what Chen Ming did was definitely not as easy as he said. There is a level 6 psychic stationed at the headquarters. Level 6 psychics have the power to destroy galaxies. Even if the ability of this level 6 psychic is limited in the headquarters, it should be difficult for ordinary psychics to resist. If Chen Ming wants to do something in the headquarters, he will inevitably face the level 6 psychic. Moreover, when the Legion commander leaves the headquarters, the general stationed in the headquarters and the level 6 psychics of the headquarters are the biggest rules of the headquarters. But Chen Ming just ignored the existence of the rules. He used violent means in the headquarters and drove out a cruiser of Yuhui in the headquarters, trampling on the rules. Even after trampling on the rules, he returned to the rules and did not become the enemy of the rules because of trampling on the rules. So far, it seems that no one has ever done this. At least in her impression, nothing like this has ever happened in the headquarters. Chang Xinghai looked at Chen Ming with something in his eyes. Chen Ming noticed this and asked, What's wrong? Is there something on my face? Chang Xinghai shook his head. She had been under the restrictions of the rules for the past 19 years. So she had a new feeling for Chen Ming, who had the ability to break the rules against himself and get out of it, and return to the rules and be protected by the rules. Yearning. She was looking forward to Chen Ming's actions today. She was looking forward to Chen Ming's strength and courage to fight against the rules of the headquarters of the 14th Corps. Ignore all rules, eliminate all obstacles, and personally seize the results you want. She wanted to be someone like Chen Ming, and she also wanted to be such a powerful psychic. I just suddenly felt that you suddenly became a little more handsome. Chen Ming didn't quite understand what Chang Xinghai meant, touched his face and asked, Really? Really, if you weren't so bad at playing games, you would be more handsome. That can't be helped. Compared to the simulated battle, the game has too many restrictions, and Chen Ming's psychic power can't be used. At least for now, Chen Ming is not as good as Chang Xinghai in pure command skills. So Chen Ming is easy to get beaten in some strategic games. Unless it is a game that purely tests reaction speed, Chen Ming has an advantage that no one can match with the strength of consciousness and the increase in thinking speed given by the psychic. Then Chang Xinghai forbade Chen Ming to use abilities that exceed ordinary people's abilities when playing such games with her since he found something wrong before. Seeing that Chen Ming looked like he wanted to play badly, Chang Xinghai smiled and took Chen Ming's arm. Okay, let's go find Xinghai first. Yes. Just after walking 2 steps into the police station, Chen Ming suddenly thought of something else and asked, By the way, has the rumor problem been solved? If not, I'll solve it. No need, it's already been solved. So soon? Yes, someone took a photo of you and me meeting in the library. Chen Ming immediately thought of the person he saw in the library before and said, Let me see it. Chang Xinghai's face turned slightly red. After a moment of hesitation, he opened the terminal and handed it to Chen Ming. Here. Chen Ming took a look at the terminal. It was indeed the perspective of the person in the library before. He took a photo of Chang Xinghai and Chen Ming looking at each other in the library. Chang Xinghai crossed his hands behind his back and stared at Chen Ming's photo like a girl who fell in love for the first time. It is completely possible to completely break the rumor that Chang Xinghai was forced to commit himself to Chen Ming under threat. A talented man and a beautiful woman are a perfect match. Is it the turn of those monsters on the school forum to question them? Time went by in a blink of an eye, and it was the next day. Chen Ming originally lived with Bai Quan in the dormitory of the teaching park. However, early in the morning, Bai Quan took Chen Ming to his home in the headquarters. Today, the old admiral was not feeling well, so Bai Quan had time to go home and take Chen Ming to prepare for the engagement banquet. Bai Quan's home is relatively close to the suburbs in the city. It is a special area for the families of active military personnel to live in. There are guards on duty, and safety is guaranteed. Bai Quan landed here in a shuttle and took Chen Ming all the way back home. The one who opened the door was Chen Ming's future mother-in-law, who was about 30 years old, quite young, and looked very gentle and virtuous. Even though Bai Quan did not go home for many years due to his own work, there was no complaint in her eyes when she looked at Bai Quan. It must be said that Bai Quan was lucky to adopt 2 orphans of his comrades at the age of 17 and finally get married. Chen Ming met his future mother-in-law, and in the eyes of his future mother-in-law who appreciated her son-in-law, he took Chen Ming to Cheng Xinghai, who came earlier, and then continued to do his own things. The time and place of the engagement party must be decided as early as possible, and she has to talk to the people from the wedding banquet company in advance. The remaining Bai Quan, Cheng Xinghai, Cheng Xinghe, and Chen Ming need to be responsible for more internal matters at the engagement party. Confirm the relatives and friends to be invited to the engagement party. Chen Ming attaches great importance to the engagement party itself. After all, it is related to his lifelong event. But Chen Ming actually has nothing to do. Anyway, Bai Quan and his mother-in-law are basically responsible for the engagement party. If Chen Ming had a normal family environment, he would have to consider where to hold the engagement party, but Chen Ming is an orphan, so it is okay here at the headquarters. Moreover, the engagement party is mostly for the elders of both sides to meet and talk about things. The only elder on Chen Ming's side is the boss. But the boss is not here. The boss is in Kamo, and he will not be back in a short time. So at that time, the most it will be the entire holographic projection, which can be regarded as coming to chat casually in the name of the master. Most things are basically decided by Chen Ming himself. As for inviting relatives and friends, Chen Ming doesn't have many friends. The only people he knows who can be considered friends are the people in the pirate space station, Baldy, Old Wu, and the factory director. Baldy, who has committed a crime elsewhere, will definitely not come, and Old Wu is busy and can't come either. At most, only the factory director is free to come, but it's still a bit too far. I don't know if he can make it in time. Chen Ming suddenly remembered that there is someone who can be found in the headquarters, Higu. Chen Ming originally planned to go to the Psychic Research Institute because Higu promised to give him a new detection device, plus the identity of an honorary member of the Psychic Research Institute promised by the Legion commander, and 3 items on the list of items of the Psychic Research Institute that he can choose. But now, he doesn't have much time to spend on the Psychic Research Institute. Not to mention that there is a Ship Research Institute and a Shining Civilization Research Institute waiting for Chen Ming to go. So don't rush for the time being. Continue to sort out the list of invitations to be sent out. Chen Ming looked at the list and suddenly found someone who looked familiar. Chairman of Shinda Company, the biological father of the factory director. Is Bai Quan familiar with him? Or is it someone else with the same name? Chen Ming didn't understand, holding the list and asked Bai Quan, "Who is this Su Lin?" Chairman of Shinda Company. Bai Quan was inspired by him before and decided to let Cheng Xinghai try with Chen Ming. It was Su Lin who brought up this matter that led to the perfect result for him now. Su Lin is at least half a matchmaker, so he must be invited to the engagement party this time. Chen Ming nodded and said, "Oh, that's fine. If he wants to come, then I have to ask another person." Bai Quan thought about it and thought of some information he had investigated when he was not very familiar with Chen Ming. The person Chen Ming was talking about should refer to Su Lin's illegitimate son, Lu Shengxi, who was the director of the maintenance factory where Chen Ming worked when he just came back. So he didn't ask any more questions. "Okay, ask me if you have any questions. I'll go out first." Bai Quan said hello and went out directly because he had to invite some people in person, such as his old boss. A few minutes later, Chen Ming suddenly shouted that he wanted to find friends he knew in school and disappeared at home. After Chen Ming closed the door. For a while, only Chen Ming and Chen Ming were left here. Chen Ming felt that the atmosphere in the room was gradually becoming more and more ambiguous. In order to prevent some things from happening in advance, she said to Chen Ming, "Can I ask you something? Want to play games?" "No. I want to ask you how you became so strong. I heard from Uncle Bai that you just awakened your psychic power 2 years ago, but my psychic power has been awakened for 3 years and has not improved." After awakening her psychic power, she went through a complete, standardized education for psychics. She has also been meditating every day and constantly practicing her own psychic power. But the effect is obviously not ideal. She has never had a suitable person to talk to about these things, and only now can she ask Chen Ming this question. To be honest, Chen Ming is a self-taught person. At most, his boss guides him in the right direction of thinking and lets Chen Ming find the right direction to practice his spiritual power. There is no real teaching to become stronger. Chen Ming has to explore it himself, plus Chen Ming's talent. Chen Ming's talent may not be as outrageous as his. At most, he can use the method he usually uses to practice to give Chen Ming a try. Chen Ming thought about what he has now. There are only 3 spiritual stones: love, whisper, and crazy words. Love is impossible to take out now. As for the remaining 2, Chen Ming took out a silent alloy box from his pocket and handed it to Chen Ming. "Try this." Chen Ming took it and asked, "What is this?" "It's for training. Touch the truth." Chen Ming opened the box and carefully reached in to touch the whispering spirit stone with twisted patterns. She frowned and said, "I feel a noisy sound in my ears. It's so uncomfortable." It's normal to feel uncomfortable. You need to use your mental power to resist this sound. Your mental power will grow in the process of fighting against this sound. That's how I got here. Slowly start from this kind of spirit stone with a relatively mild nature, and finally change to a spirit stone with a more extreme nature. Chen Ming touched the spirit stone in the box again and asked, "Is this also considered a relatively mild nature?" "Of course, the extreme nature is here." Chen Ming pulled out a revolver from his waist. At the bottom of the revolver's grip was a spirit stone, the words of madness. No feeling. Chen Ming did not respond to Chen Ming, but held her hand. "What are you doing?" When Chen Ming tried to pull her hand out gently, Chen Ming's mental power protected her consciousness, and then Chen Ming released some power of the crazy language spirit stone. The dark distortion that was almost visible to the naked eye occupied Chen Ming's vision. Only a second later, Chen Ming immediately used his resonance with the spirit stone to retract the dark distortion into the spirit stone. "How does it feel?" Chen Ming asked Chen Ming the question, but Chen Ming did not respond at this time, but fell on the table. She fainted. It should be that the stimulation of the crazy language power is too terrifying. Even if Chen Ming has fully protected Chen Ming's consciousness and will not let her be affected by any consciousness, this extreme nature can directly affect people from the cognitive level. It's like a child who has never seen a horror movie being scared by a ghost. Although there was no substantial damage, Chen Ming fainted. This should be regarded as the body's self-protection function. Chen Ming has done a complete protection, but this purely visual brief contact still made Chen Ming unable to bear it. She is a little too fragile. It seems that Chen Ming's mental strength is really not strong. If you want her to grow up, you have to use some extreme means. After confirming again that Chen Ming was only temporarily fainted by the influence of the crazy language spirit stone on the real environment, and she must be fine, Chen Ming thought about what he should do now. Now he and Chen Ming are alone in a room with only the 2 of them, and Chen Ming fainted and has no ability to move at all. After serious consideration, Chen Ming carried Chen Ming to her bedroom here and threw her on the bed. Then he moved a chair from outside to the bedside. Chen Ming glanced at Chen Ming again. She seemed to have dreamed of something horrible in her sleep. Her expression was nervous and flustered, and sweat kept oozing from her forehead. It seems that even if she is protected, It is a bit too much to let her come into contact with the words of madness. Chen Ming gently held Cheng Xinghai's hand, and his gentle mental power continued to soothe her subconscious mind, maintaining her mental state. After the mental power soothing lasted for a few minutes, Cheng Xinghai's expression relaxed. Chen Ming also leaned back in the chair. However, he held Cheng Xinghai's hand and did not let go. The last plot of Chapter 314 has been completely changed. It has been changed to that after Cheng Xinghai fell into a coma, Chen Ming did not go to the Psychic Research Institute, but stayed with her all the time. So when you read the next chapter, you can turn the page to see the changed plot. The rest will follow the new plot. Sorry, half an hour passed. Cheng Xinghai suddenly woke up. She gasped for air as soon as she woke up, as if she had seen something horrible in her dream. But she soon calmed down, and her breathing became stable again. Chen Ming's soothing, which had been consuming his mental energy, had worked. Awake? Hearing Chen Ming's concerned inquiry, Cheng Xinghai found that she was lying on the bed in her bedroom, and Chen Ming was sitting next to her. Her face flushed all of a sudden, and she subconsciously checked her clothes, which were still neat. Chen Ming did not do anything strange when she was unconscious. Cheng Xinghai breathed a sigh of relief, but she glanced at the bedside again and found that her slippers were neatly placed there. Her mind suddenly had a picture of Chen Ming holding her to the bedside, helping her take off her slippers and lifting her feet to the bed to lay flat. Her face became redder. Chen Ming, who had decisively thrown Cheng Xinghai onto the bed and put away his shoes, tilted his head and asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Cheng Xinghai couldn't take the initiative to say that he had thought of some ambiguous scenes. If he said these words in his bedroom, the atmosphere might develop in some direction. She was not ready yet. Cheng Xinghai covered her head and propped herself up. "What happened to me just now?" Chen Ming said two words concisely and easily, "Dizzy." "Of course I know I fainted. How did I faint?" Chen Ming pulled the pistol out of the holster, turned it around and handed it to Cheng Xinghai. "You are not afraid of accidental discharge." Cheng Xinghai looked at the crazy language spirit stone covered with twisted and crazy patterns at the end of the revolver's handle, but still did not dare to take the pistol. "This thing. It's what I use to train my spiritual energy now, but the effect is getting less and less obvious." "It's not effective for you?" "Yes." The madness word spirit stone was made during the last dimensional infection. After using it for such a long time, Chen Ming has long been completely accustomed to such mental shocks, and the effect is indeed getting weaker and weaker. However, what Chen Ming didn't expect was that after he casually said something that he didn't feel anything about, Cheng Xinghai suddenly became a little depressed. It seemed that his words made Cheng Xinghai feel an insurmountable gap. Chen Ming comforted him immediately. "Don't be discouraged. I also started from whisper and worked my way up step by step. In the past, just touching the spirit stone I gave you at the beginning would make my brain hurt." Cheng Xinghai still said a little depressed, "How long ago was that?" 2 years ago. At that time, I was still surviving in the wilderness of Ruemu, and there was an undiscovered mechanical mind pulse generator on Ruemu. It contained the Whisper Spirit Stone, which continuously released mind pulses to the surrounding area. I took the mind pulses for about a month. At that time, the mind pulse almost drove me crazy. I could only drive the spaceship to space every day during my rest time to exchange for some rest time. At that time, I was much more fragile than you are now. Chen Ming's comfort had some effect. Cheng Xinghai cheered up a little and asked, "Then was the spirit stone you showed me at the beginning the whisper?" "No, it was the one behind." Question mark. Cheng Xinghai didn't react for a while, because the effect of the spirit stone called the word of madness by Chen Ming was too terrifying. If Chen Ming had come into contact with the word of madness before, of course, it was not that exaggerated in reality. Chen Ming immediately explained, "The spirit stone I got from the mechanical family's equipment is the Whispering Spirit Stone, and its situation is quite special. It grew from an ordinary spirit stone to a resonance spirit stone, and then gradually became what it is now." Chen Ming still remembers that he put the Whispering Spirit Stone in the warehouse of his iron ore, and he was transporting the bodies of several pirates at that time. It can only be said that when he got the coffin, the pirate in the coffin was not dead yet, and he died only when he got on the spacecraft. Usually, the reason why the spirit stone appears is that some people have some extreme emotions in their hearts when they are dying. These emotions will affect some ordinary stones in the world under the influence of the mental power of these people who are stimulated to the extreme by extreme emotions and transform the stones into spirit stones. Normally, when the pirate dies, the resentment in his heart will stimulate a stone around him to become a new spirit stone. Perhaps it was because there were no suitable stones nearby in space at the time. Or perhaps it was because this spiritual stone itself had its own special features. In the end, the whispering spiritual stone that Chen Ming placed in the storage compartment of the spacecraft was stimulated and became the false spiritual stone, and a unique resonance was generated. Chen Ming was needed to complete the goal of resonance, and the false spiritual stone also completely resonated with him after he killed the middleman who pitted the pirate captain to death. Later, the false spiritual stone came into contact with the creature infected by the dimension with the same crazy nature, and the death of the distorted heart once again promoted the change of the false spiritual stone. It became what it is now. Chen Ming explained to Cheng Xinghai in detail the origin of this crazy language spirit stone. Finally, he concluded, "It also grew in the process of my growth, so I am lucky that I have always had such a spirit stone to practice my spiritual power. Even the stone can grow to this point. You will definitely continue to become stronger." Cheng Xinghai's depressed mood had dissipated when she listened to Chen Ming's story about the past. She was very interested in Chen Ming's past and listened very carefully. "I remember you didn't explain so much in the simulation before. Because the situation was different then." Chen Ming explained as a matter of course, "You were just a captive then, and I was just perfunctory, but now, I am telling you things seriously." Hearing this, Cheng Xinghai got up and threw herself on Chen Ming's back, wrapped her arms around Chen Ming's neck and said, "I knew you were perfunctory before, staring at the computer every day." She didn't use any force at all. She was just acting like a spoiled child. It seems that Chen Ming's comfort is still very effective. Okay, it's almost done. I can hear my mother-in-law's footsteps downstairs if I don't go out." Hearing this, Cheng Xinghai quickly loosened her arm around Chen Ming's neck, jumped off the bed, put on her shoes and hurried outside. She picked up a pen and continued to record the people who needed to be invited to the engagement party later. Time came to noon in a blink of an eye. Chen Ming also had a formal meal with Bai Quan's family. Of course, there would be a chat session during the meal. Chen Ming also roughly understood the progress of the engagement banquet. After a morning of hard work, the guests to be invited to the engagement banquet have been roughly decided, and at most they will just make some simple additions and subtractions. However, it has not been determined which company will host the engagement banquet. The mother-in-law looked a little headache. Because she went to a wedding company today to conduct an on-site inspection and ask questions, and on the way back, she had already received calls from dozens of different wedding companies. It seems that it will take some time to select a suitable one. The specific venue of the engagement banquet will be arranged according to the location of the wedding company. The time for the engagement banquet has also been chosen, just 2 weeks later. Leave enough time to prepare everything. In addition to these, the matter of the engagement ring was of course mentioned at the table, and Chen Ming decisively contracted this task. But after hearing that Chen Ming was going to take on this task, Bai Quan suddenly signaled Chen Ming with his eyes, as if he had something to say. After lunch, Bai Quan went to the balcony first. Chen Ming understood and also went to the balcony and closed the door. As the military family accommodation park of the Corps, the sound insulation here is quite good, and the people in the room can't hear the conversation between Chen Ming and Bai Quan. Bai Quan didn't say much nonsense. Just when he mentioned the topic of engagement ring to Chen Ming, he said, "You said you came to prepare the ring. Do you want to use the things given by the Corps commander?" "Yes, spiritual stone. The characteristic is love. It's very suitable, isn't it?" Bai Quan nodded slightly, but shook his head again. "I heard some information from my friend at the Psychic Research Institute. The love spirit stone seems to have some negative effects." Chen Ming admitted, "Yes, after building a spiritual connection between two psychics, Whether the relationship breaks down or one of them dies due to an accident or some other reason, it will have a great impact on the other party. Negative effects are the biggest flaw of this spirit stone. I know what you are worried about, but there is no need to. The special effects of the love spirit stone require two psychics to actively activate. As long as they are not activated, there will be no negative effects. Just use it as an ordinary spirit stone. What is important is its symbolic meaning. What can be more suitable for Xinghai and me than it? And it is because of its negative effects that I plan to use it on an engagement ring instead of a wedding ring. For Chen Ming, he even felt that even if he really wanted to trigger the special effects of the love spirit stone, it would not be too smooth. If he did not restrain himself, Cheng Xinghai might be knocked unconscious by the increase in his mental power. Even if he really wanted to use it, he would have to start by training Cheng Xinghai slowly with the Whispering Spirit Stone. And there is another problem. Chen Ming himself is a mentally violent entity, so he can use various psychic things at will without being negatively affected. But Cheng Xinghai can't. Once she uses the Love Spirit Stone, it means that she needs to wear love for a long time, and it will be more troublesome to use other spirit stones for training effects. And Chen Ming doesn't think love is a good choice for Xinghai. He has had many opportunities to contact Xinghai and knows what Xinghai's psychic fluctuations are like, so he knows that Xinghai's psychic nature is not very compatible with love. The Love Spirit Stone is just more suitable for Chen Ming and Cheng Xinghai's engagement banquet, not for Xinghai itself. So, Chen Ming really used the Love Spirit Stone as an engagement ring. He will not actually use the special effects of the Love Spirit Stone, at least not for the time being. Chen Ming felt that Bai Quan seemed to want to say something, but he hesitated and finally didn't say it and swallowed his words. However, Chen Ming could probably guess what Bai Quan wanted to say, which must be about the Legion commander. After all, the Love Spirit Stone was given to him by the Legion commander. It is not that the Legion commander wants to use this thing to restrict Chen Ming, or use Cheng Xinghai to kill him. The reason is also very simple. Chen Ming is a psychic after all, and he is also a researcher with a relatively complex research direction. Although he has not systematically studied psychic energy, he has a lot of knowledge about psychic energy. And he also knows people who work in the Psychic Energy Research Institute. Therefore, Chen Ming is absolutely clear about the nature of the Love Spirit Stone itself. Even if the Legion commander does not know whether Chen Ming is clear about the effect of the Love Spirit Stone. When he gave the gift, Chen Ming could see the unique effect of the Spirit Stone without even reaching out to touch it. After understanding the Legion commander's intentions and thanking him, he probably understood that Chen Ming was an expert. What's more, Chen Ming has more than one good thing with psychic properties on hand, which many people know. He had never deliberately hidden the crazy word Spirit Stone inlaid on Ming and Ming that did not emit any spiritual energy fluctuations but had spirit stone patterns. If you think about it, you will understand that this is a spiritual weapon inlaid with a special resonance spirit stone. And Ming was given to Chen Ming by Bai Quan, let alone. Therefore, ordinary spirit stones with many restrictions such as love cannot be compared with what Chen Ming has. It is purely because of the unique symbolic meaning of the Love Spirit Stone that the Legion commander gave it to him. With the means of the Legion commander, it is impossible and unnecessary to expect Chen Ming to use this spirit stone himself. If he really wants to hold Chen Ming's handle, he should use some other means. Of course, judging from the current performance of the Legion commander, he has no intention of doing such a thing. He seems to really want to maintain a good and friendly relationship with Chen Ming. Although Bai Quan did not say it clearly, he must be worried about these issues. Chen Ming also gave Bai Quan a little hint and said, "Don't worry about these problems. I will take care of all matters related to psychic energy." Bai Quan turned his gaze from the distance back to Chen Ming, his eyes intertwined with complex emotions. "Then, leave it to you." 2 weeks passed in a flash. The engagement banquet of Chen Ming and Cheng Xinghai was held as scheduled. The specific process of the engagement banquet was not complicated, and it was much simpler than the formal wedding banquet. But there still had to be various ceremonies. Anyway, Chen Ming didn't like it very much, and Cheng Xinghai disliked it even more than him. The day before, She pulled Chen Ming and yelled that it should be over quickly and not to make too many fancy things. Then she was pushed back by her mother-in-law. This was a very important matter after all, and the two still had to cooperate. Of course, it didn't take long. Compared with the wedding banquet, the engagement banquet was mainly to entertain guests and announce the details of the wedding banquet in the future. Generally speaking, there were not too many procedures. The two protagonists of the engagement banquet only needed to attend halfway and meet some important guests. For example, Chen Ming needed to meet the directors of the Ship Research Institute, the Psychic Research Institute, and the Shining Civilization Research Institute, because he now had 3 honorary members. There was also Bai Quan's adoptive father, and some old people in Bai Quan's faction who were closely related to Bai Quan, and He Gu, who was invited by Chen Ming. The 3 directors all welcomed Chen Ming. Bai Quan's adoptive father, his old boss, was also quite optimistic about Chen Ming. When Chen Ming saw He Gu at the engagement banquet, he suddenly realized a problem. The Psychic Research Institute is a place for systematic research on psychic energy, and he has not systematically learned anything related to psychic energy until now. This means that even if Chen Ming goes there now, there is not much he can learn. He seemed to have been fooled a little bit. But this was his own problem. There was nothing to say. The other 2 research institutes did not need to have a very systematic understanding of psychic energy, just be diligent when going to those 2 research institutes. But Chen Ming also suddenly discovered the sinister intentions of the Legion commander. There are indeed good things in these departments, but they definitely take a lot of time to learn, and it is best to participate in the learning method in person. In other words, the Legion commander gave Chen Ming the identities of these 3 honorary members, which was equivalent to using a large piece of fat meat to tempt Chen Ming to stay in the headquarters. After all, after leaving, although the identity of the honorary member is still there, the environment in which it can be applied is not so good. This is also what he needs to focus on in the future. After all, he can't stay in the headquarters for a lifetime. While Chen Ming was thinking about it, he suddenly found that there seemed to be a lot of people around Bai Quan. Chen Ming listened casually, and it seemed that they were mainly talking about the incident 2 weeks ago. There are vacancies in many departments, and someone needs to fill them. Many of these vacancies were assigned to Bai Quan. Of course, there would be a bunch of people around Bai Quan. Chen Ming didn't care about other things, but he had to pay attention to the Special Materials Management Department. Because energy crystals are considered special-grade materials, the development of energy crystal crab resources must go through the Special Materials Management Department. Before Chen Ming was not in the 14th Legion, he had already handed over the transaction of energy crystals to Bai Quan as an agent, allowing Bai Quan to force his way into this department. Now that several factions have been affected, there are many vacancies, which just allows Bai Quan to intervene more. Let's not talk about anything else. As long as Bai Chuan's people can be placed in this department, it will be absolutely meaningful for Chen Ming to make money using the resources of energy crystal crabs. And it seems that because the news that Chen Ming intends to sell energy crystals, energy crystal crabs, and energy crystal crab cultivation technology was announced by Bai Quan. Many people also want to talk to Bai Quan about this emerging material. Although Chen Ming is the original source of goods, because Bai Quan is helping, people basically go to Bai Quan. It was good. Chen Ming was also happy to be alone. After meeting almost everyone he should meet, he quietly slipped outside the banquet hall to take a breath. However, he had only been alone for a while when someone came to him. "Hello, Mr. Chen Ming." The person who spoke was a gentle-looking man in a suit. He should be someone's relative or friend. Although Chen Ming didn't know him, and it was not necessary to be too serious in such an occasion. But since the man in the suit was like this, Chen Ming still greeted him. "Hello, who are you? Please allow me to promise in advance before talking to you that I will leave the Legion headquarters after today and will never appear in front of your family." Chen Ming's face suddenly darkened. If the man in the suit was not going to talk about something dangerous, he would obviously not say so first. "Go on. I'm from the Empire." This short sentence made Chen Ming's heart surge. However, he still calmly asked back, "I know what you want to do. The ruling party and ruling class of the Empire?" The man in the suit said in a gentle tone, "I just want to get to know you, because the Empire needs people like you. You want me to leave the Legion and join the Empire? Is this coercion or invitation? Of course it is an invitation. We just want you to know that the foundation of the 14th Legion is the existence of the Empire, and the Legion can also give you the Empire. We just gave you an additional choice. There is no forced nature in my conversation with you. Chen Ming disagreed with him. It's hard to say. It is precisely because you may have such an idea that I will make a guarantee before communicating with you. We also know that you have someone in the Legion who cannot be separated, so we just sent me here to send you the most basic invitation. If you are interested, please contact this person. The man in the suit took out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Chen Ming with both hands. Chen Ming thought about it and finally took the business card. The man in the suit bowed slightly to Chen Ming, turned around and left. It seems that he is indeed going to fulfill his promise. Chen Ming glanced at the business card, which only had a communication code on it. This was an invitation from the Empire. Chen Ming suddenly had mixed feelings. Because he had finally grown to a level that was worthy of the Empire's attention and worthy of the Empire's invitation. Belonging to the Empire and belonging to the Legion, although both were working for the Empire, but these were two different concepts. It is no wonder that the commander of the army would rather bleed heavily to solve this matter immediately and find a way to keep him in the army. Unknowingly, Chen Ming has grown to such a point. This can be regarded as an additional choice. If Chen Ming is not satisfied with the army, he can leave at any time and contact him using this contact method. Although he has no intention of leaving at present, after all, the attitude of the commander of the army is very good, but he has to leave a way out for himself. With a way out, there is also bargaining capital. It does not mean that he must join the Empire. He can use the Empire as a springboard for his further development. It is just that getting along with the army and getting along with the Empire are also different concepts, and different things need to be considered. If he has a close relationship with the Empire, it will be more difficult for him to leave in the future. However, Chen Ming now only has a prosthesis left in the Empire, and he does not need to consider this issue at all. After watching the people from the Empire disappear near the banquet hall, Chen Ming returned to the banquet hall. Together with Cheng Xinghai, they toasted each table of guests. Other ceremonies had been done before, and after a round of them, the engagement banquet was essentially over. The wedding banquet after the engagement would have to be postponed for a while. Maybe soon, maybe a long time. It depends on the situation of the mechanical war in the future. If everything goes well, Chen Ming should be able to return to the headquarters to get married after the war. Anyway, there is no opportunity and time to do it now. Cheng Xinghai has to go back to school, because it is now June in Earth Standard Time. Normally, summer vacation is about to begin. But Cheng Xinghai is now a junior student and a student of a special military school. After the senior year, he will go to the battlefield. Therefore, in the summer vacation at the end of the junior year, the school will carry out concentrated training for officers to cope with the actual battlefield. She will definitely not be free for at least a year. And Chen Ming is similar. Although he does not have any tasks, he also has requirements for himself. He needs to get familiar with the 3 research institutes where he has honorary membership as soon as possible, because these 3 research institutes will provide him with help in the subsequent mechanical war. This is only what he needs to do in the headquarters. The situation in other places, such as in Wupiang, the main body far outside the Empire, and the planet of the Queen of Insects, is also very similar. He and Cheng Xinghai can't be together all day like a real couple. They have things to do. In addition to doing the things he just thought of, and some additional preparations, Chen Ming now has another important thing. That is, he needs to decide where to go in the future. Stay in the headquarters, or return to the branch. This question can actually be answered easily. The mechanical war is about to start, and the Gallo star field will soon become the front line. He has to go to the branch after all. He can't stay in the headquarters after the war starts. And Chen Ming has promised to help Bai Quan Yu's psychic power to control the entire branch before. He must do this. Although there should be no more problems at the headquarters at this stage, it is only the branch that is far away from the emperor, and someone may have other ideas. In addition, after the training, Cheng Xinghai will go to the battlefield, and Jialuo is the battlefield. Chen Ming must go. However, although he likes you to make decisions immediately, it is not urgent to do what he decides. The war has not yet begun. After the idea has been determined, the only urgent thing for him now is to control the branch. In addition to Chen Ming himself going back to control the branch, there is another way to control the branch, using the afterglow core. Not only devices, equipment, or buildings, as long as they are equipped with electronic systems. Once they are connected to the afterglow core controlled by Chen Ming, they will be completely under his control. The branch itself is built under the dome on the volcanic planet. The dome is full of electronic systems, and it can be controlled easily with an afterglow core. It just so happens that Chen Ming has experienced the tempering of the Scarlet Dimension. His psychic power can be transmitted through the Scarlet Dimension by sealing the afterglow core. The number of afterglow cores and their locations are no longer limited by the scope of Chen Ming's psychic power. Therefore, Chen Ming can completely hand over the branch to a robot with a new afterglow core installed. The control power of Yuhui core is enough to control a branch. Not to mention Baichuan's tacit consent. When the war starts in the future, he needs to go to the branch, and the headquarters can be replaced by robots. This is Chen Ming's idea. With a general approach, the rest is to fill in the details. But just when Chen Ming was sitting alone in the corner of the banquet hall, thinking about what to do next, Chang Xinghai's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. "You are here." Chen Ming raised his head and asked, "What's wrong?" "Of course I'm looking for you. What else can I do? You disappeared after dinner, and I looked for you outside for a long time. Who knew you were hiding here?" Chang Xinghai sat next to Chen Ming and leaned towards Chen Ming. After finding a comfortable angle, she put her whole weight on Chen Ming. She whispered to Chen Ming, "I'm going back to school soon." "I know. I still have to go to the training camp, closed management, 3 months, about 1 day off a month, can make phone calls or something." Chen Ming thought about what he should say at this time, and said, "Can I play games?" Chang Xinghai suddenly laughed when he heard Chen Ming's question. "This doesn't seem like a question you would ask. Can't I suddenly want to play games?" "Of course." Chang Xinghai hugged Chen Ming tighter with a gentle smile on his face. Chen Ming also took the opportunity to reach out and hug her shoulders, saying, "Remember not to take off the wristband when the time comes. The instructors at the training camp may be very strict. It's okay. I will drive the cruiser over and let them allow you to wear this wristband." "You really are. Don't joke around." Chang Xinghai hit Chen Ming's arm lightly. Although she had restrained herself, Chen Ming still felt a pain. Chang Xinghai also felt Chen Ming's body tremble slightly and asked, "Did I hurt you? My psychic power doesn't improve my physical fitness." "Then I apologize to you." Chang Xinghai suddenly let go of Chen Ming's arm, stood up, and stood in front of Chen Ming. She bent down and tapped Chen Ming's lips lightly. She disappeared in a blink of an eye. The next day, after sending Chang Xinghai to school early in the morning, Chen Ming appeared in the parking lot of the military family accommodation area. Since Chen Ming slept on the floor last night, nothing happened. So today, he can go to the Psychic Research Institute with full energy. Implement the plan he had decided to go to the Psychic Research Institute when he is free. However, the specific location of the Psychic Research Institute is not on the planet of the headquarters. After all, some things related to psychic power are too dangerous. Once accidents occur in some experiments in the Psychic Research Institute, it may lead to quite tragic consequences. Therefore, the location of the Psychic Research Institute was chosen elsewhere. The planet where the 14th Corps is headquartered has 2 satellites. One of them became the location of the Psychic Research Institute. Although Chen Ming, as an honorary member of the Psychic Research Institute, can go directly, it is obviously more appropriate to have someone take him there for the first visit. So Chen Ming told Higu yesterday and asked Higu to pick him up. Higu certainly didn't mind taking Chen Ming to the sky. So when Chen Ming sent Chang Xinghai to school, he saw Higu was already in the parking lot. Higu greeted Chen Ming from a distance and asked, "Didn't you just finish the engagement party yesterday? Are you free to come today?" Chen Ming responded, "Yes, there are always many things to do. I'll go there first to get the things I need today, and then learn about the Psychic Research Institute. Do you mind being a tour guide?" "Of course not." Higu stretched out his hand to the shuttle next to him, motioning Chen Ming to get on board. "The things and the tour guide are ready." The shuttle took off. Soon after, it left the atmosphere of the home planet. When the white mist of the atmosphere dissipated, the brilliant starry sky appeared in front of Chen Ming. Chen Ming saw the satellite orbiting the planet. Because the timing was not very good when he came last time, he did not see the actual appearance of the satellite. Until now, he saw that the satellite where the Psychic Research Institute was located was a planet with about 20% ocean area, and the land part was generally emerald green and orange-red. This is also a habitable planet and a habitable satellite. Chen Ming was not very clear about the local geographical conditions before, so after he saw the two habitable planets, he sighed and said, "The satellite is also a habitable planet. This galaxy really has a unique advantage. I don't know if the suitable galaxy he finds in the future will have such conditions." However, Higu has something to say about this. That's not the case, because the planet has undergone climate modification. At that time, the scene of collecting water-containing asteroids from the entire galaxy and neighboring galaxies was very grand. Climate modification technology. Chen Ming has heard of it. This is a technology for transforming non-habitable planets that have the potential to become habitable planets. The theory of this technology has been proposed for many years, but the number of actual transformations has been counted on one's fingers. Because the transformation of planets, especially the transformation of climate, is extremely difficult to achieve, there are few successful cases. In addition, the Empire has mastered the hyperspace channel technology a long time ago and expanded the Empire to a level that was once unimaginable. Habitable planets are no longer rare. The value brought by simply transforming an uninhabitable planet is not proportional to the cost required. The investment in this technology has not changed until the end of the pioneering era, and this technology has not made any obvious progress, and it has remained at the same level as before. Only some galaxies that are already highly developed may need to transform some uninhabitable planets into habitable planets. For example, the satellite that Higu is talking about now. The fact that this planet is a satellite actually reduces the difficulty of climate transformation to a certain extent. And this technology is also quite interesting, and he can use it. He can find an opportunity to learn it. Just as Chen Ming saw the satellite where the Psychic Research Institute is located. Another satellite, orbiting the main planet, just poked out from the edge of the planet. And this satellite that just entered Chen Ming's eyes was completely different from the satellite of the Psychic Research Institute he saw. Compared with the satellite of the Psychic Research Institute, this satellite is smaller in size. But on its periphery, there are two artificial ring structures of different sizes surrounding it. Those are two rings of highly developed orbital industrial facilities. And surrounded by orbital industrial facilities. Only the color of metal can be seen on the surface of the satellite. The entire planet has become a part of mechanization. Chen Ming is not sure whether the entire planet has become completely mechanical, but perhaps he will know later. Because that satellite belongs to the Ship Research Institute. The responsibility of the Ship Research Institute itself is to design spacecraft, so naturally it will also need to test the design spacecraft. As one of the three giants of the Legion Research Institute. Like the Psychic Research Institute, the Ship Research Institute enjoys the qualification of a satellite as the basis of the institute. Therefore, this satellite naturally became the test site of the Ship Research Institute. The Ship Research Institute itself does not need large-scale industrial facilities, but it needs to manufacture prototypes and high-precision equipment. The orbital industrial facilities built on the periphery of the satellite, which is relatively small in size, can just meet the needs of saving costs and not wasting too much industrial facilities. In such a mechanized satellite, Chen Ming is also quite interested. Of course, he is interested, but he has other things to do now. The shuttle continued to fly towards the satellite of the Psychic Research Institute. After the review and approval of the space station, Chen Ming was able to enter the atmosphere of the satellite and saw the planet belonging to the Psychic Research Institute. And soon, Chen Ming also noticed that the distribution of buildings on this satellite was somewhat special. It is not the kind of urbanized division on a normal colony planet, but a distribution style similar to that of a pastoral farm. Basically, you have to fly a long distance to see a few research buildings that are close together. Higu explained. Since the consequences of some psychic experiments may have a wide range of impact, the planet is usually not too densely arranged with buildings, so as to avoid the collateral danger caused by experimental accidents from affecting too many people. The basic supplies of researchers in these places are guaranteed by unmanned transport ships, but those who can come to such places are basically people who have their own research projects to do. Usually, most people stay in other places. Where? We have a main city that does not allow any psychic experiments. We will be there soon. Chen Ming nodded. Continue to look out the window. And just as the shuttle continued to move towards the main city of the Psychic Research Institute mentioned by Gu, at a certain moment, Chen Ming suddenly felt a gentle psychic wave suddenly enveloped him. It made his mind, which was a little impetuous because of recent events, suddenly calm down. This spiritual energy fluctuation is very familiar. Fairy tree? Chen Ming had just asked this question when a little fluorescence suddenly appeared on the edge of the distant horizon in front of the low-flying shuttle. Chen Ming realized something and moved closer to the front of the cab to see more clearly. As the shuttle accelerated closer, what came into Chen Ming's eyes was a towering tree. A giant tree that could cover the city under its grand canopy. It was a fairy tree. The bright leaves with a faint fluorescence were floating, like a sea of fluorescence covering Chen Ming's vision. Under this sea of fluorescence was the bronze trunk whose diameter seemed to be enough to support the sky. To be able to support such a huge canopy, the strength of the trunk is definitely not comparable to that of ordinary trees. And the roots below, although they cannot be seen by the naked eye. But according to normal experience, the depth of the roots of this fairy tree is probably even larger and more complex than its canopy exposed on the surface. It was as if the entire satellite was supplying nutrients to the fairy tree. The core city of the Psychic Research Institute was built around this giant tree. Chen Ming originally thought that the mechanical satellite was already exaggerated enough, but he didn't expect that he would be shocked again in just a few minutes. No wonder you changed the route when I saw you driving the spacecraft just now. You didn't want me to see it outside the atmosphere, right? Chen Ming was talking to Gu, but his eyes were on the giant fairy tree. Gu admitted, "Yes, how does it feel? It's really shocking. How did such a fairy tree grow up?" A level 6 psychic once died under the fairy tree when it was still a sapling. This is the last facade of the 14th Legion before the reorganization, and it is also the largest facade of our new 14th Legion now. There is no fairy tree in the entire empire that is larger than this. Gu's words were full of pride. The shuttle continued to approach, until it was under the tree canopy. Chen Ming originally thought that the canopy of this giant fairy tree would be completely dark, or only have a small amount of fluorescence, and artificial lighting equipment would be needed to ensure lighting. But when he really came over, he found out. All the places that were lit in the city were all very bright natural light. The leaves of the fairy tree, with the faint fluorescence emitted, magically illuminated the surface to the brightness that was like the light of a star directly passing through the leaves, maintaining the harmony of the environment. It's really exaggerated. Chen Ming kept sighing and couldn't say more adjectives. Such an existence really made it difficult for him to find the right words to describe it. And the closer he got to this fairy tree, the more Chen Ming could feel it. The psychic strength and psychic fluctuations of this fairy tree itself were definitely considered a level 6 psychic creature, and creatures were not just animals. A level 6 psychic creature was more powerful than he was now. Does it have consciousness? Chen Ming asked. Gu shook his head uncertainly. At present, it seems that this fairy tree only has weak instincts. Of course, it may have consciousness, but its concept of time after it grows up is different from that of humans, so there is no way to communicate. But basically, all psychics who have stayed here firmly believe that this tree is conscious and it is protecting us. Gu circled around the trunk of the fairy tree with Chen Ming for several circles, and finally landed in an area close to the trunk. The headquarters building of the Psychic Research Institute is here. The director of the Psychic Research Institute was welcoming Chen Ming at the door at this time. He briefly exchanged a few words with Chen Ming, confirmed Chen Ming's purpose, and told Gu to try his best to meet Chen Ming's needs before saying goodbye and leaving. After getting the director's instructions, He-gu easily took Chen Ming to the basement of the Institute building. After passing through the intricate underground passages caused by the roots of the fairy tree and the layers of strict protection, Chen Ming finally arrived at the warehouse of the Psychic Research Institute, which covers an area almost the same as the cross-section of the trunk of the fairy tree. And this is just one layer. The first time he came here, a question popped up in Chen Ming's mind. Why build a warehouse here? Because there must be some spiritual energy-related things that are extremely dangerous just by leaving them there, and building a warehouse underground in this city may cause these things to directly affect the entire city. He-gu certainly understood Chen Ming's problem. He pointed to the top of his head and said, "The spiritual energy fluctuations of the fairy tree tend to soothe the spirit. It is equivalent to a top psychic exerting his influence on the things below all the time. The existence of such a fairy tree can suppress all riotous spiritual things. Plus our little guidance, use the fairy tree to create a powerful containment system." He-gu briefly explained to Chen Ming and continued to take Chen Ming deeper into the warehouse. Some time passed. After passing through a layer of protection, Chen Ming suddenly noticed that the concentration of the spiritual energy fluctuations belonging to the fairy tree around him suddenly increased. He seemed to have come to the warehouse area where spiritual energy items related to the fairy tree were stored. He-gu confirmed to Chen Ming, "What you need is 2 fairy tree seeds and a spiritual awakening nerve, right?" "Yes, this thing is the most expensive thing on the list. It should be very rare, right?" He-gu confirmed the document and responded, "Of course. Although the fairy tree looks big and has many leaves, tree seeds can only be obtained after the fairy tree blooms. The flowering time of the fairy tree is not fixed, but there are generally less than 10 flowers per year, and the flowers will eventually become seeds." Chen Ming noticed the problem in He-gu's words and asked, "No fruit?" "No fruit, only flowers and seeds. And generally speaking, we need the flowers of the fairy tree more than its seeds, because flowers are more suitable for use in research than seeds, so we usually only have a small amount of seeds in stock. These fairy tree species are not only for our army, but the Fanchao Research Institute will come to take some from time to time. In addition to our cooperation with some research institutes in other places, the number of fairy tree species can be said to be quite scarce. You took 2 directly, but you took away half of our current stock," He-gu said, and took Chen Ming to a room for storing psychic objects. Pressed the document in his hand directly on a screen at the door of the room. After taking the fairy tree seeds, its cultivation method will also be given to you, and you can try to cultivate it. But to be honest, it's difficult. Generally speaking, a research institute only cultivates 1 or 2 trees, just like the ones you see outside. If you want to try it yourself, it will be very difficult." Chen Ming said, "I have to try it, so I want to." He needs the continuous and stable output of plant psychic materials from the fairy tree. It can be used to make various drugs to calm the mind, ensure mental stability, or assist meditation. Although Chen Ming could decisively not use any psychic drugs before, now after contacting the Scarlet Dimension, Chen Ming feels that at least when facing the Scarlet Dimension, these drugs are still necessary. Even if these drugs can only allow him to stay in the Scarlet Dimension for 0.1 seconds longer, these drugs have their value. What's more, this type of drug has other uses. For example, feeding it to the Queen of Insects, or feeding it to Cheng Xinghai. He can even try to cultivate such a fairy tree like the Legion. He-gu did not make any comments on Chen Ming's decision. "It's good that you have a clear mind." With the document signed by the Legion commander himself, He-gu easily took out 2 fairy tree seeds. "Next, there is another spiritual nerve, and I said before that I would replace the new detection equipment for you. I have asked someone to help take out the equipment, but we have to go there in person to awaken the spiritual nerve." After He-gu finished speaking, he put away the document, turned around and handed 2 apple-sized tree seeds that looked fluorescent to Chen Ming. And at the moment when Chen Ming touched the fairy tree seeds, the Queen of Insects suddenly expressed an extreme desire. Chen Ming silently looked at the 2 tree seeds in his hand. Fortunately, he had foresight. After getting everything, Chen Ming and He-gu returned to the surface. He-gu glanced at the current time and asked, "Shall I show you around next?" Although different laboratories in our institute usually work privately, there are occasionally a few public lectures on topics. There happens to be one today. It's nearby. Do you want to go? The theme is the changes in the machine race compared to the past, based on the recent frontline reconnaissance results.
Can.
Although Chen Ming can't understand too many details related to psychic energy, he can definitely learn more about the mechanical race, which will definitely help him in his future work. So he decisively agreed and boarded the Higu shuttle boat again. And after getting on the shuttle boat, Higu suddenly sent Chen Ming a list of reports on all ongoing research topics at the Psychic Research Institute. I just got this. This list is relatively confidential, so it took me a while to get the authority to bring it out. Take a look. Are there any projects that you are particularly interested in? After all, Chen Ming was an honorary member granted by the Legion commander himself. It was previously said that Chen Ming could join any experimental group at will, as long as he did not do any purely destructive behavior. But before, Chen Ming had no idea about the Psychic Research Institute, and he had no idea what experimental group to join, and he had no idea who was working there. With this list, many things will be much easier to do. Chen Ming's eyes slid down the list. Although you can only see the titles of these projects, you can probably guess the direction of the research. There is indeed a lot of content in these projects that Chen Ming is interested in. 10 minutes later, the shuttle boat is approaching its destination and is about to land. Chen Ming also read a complete list of all the research projects of the Psychic Research Institute and turned off the terminal. Higu took advantage of this moment and asked, "How's it going? Is anyone interested?" The reason why Higu cares so much about Chen Ming's ideas is because if Chen Ming is interested in a certain research, he will definitely have to stay for a while. Chen Ming's stay would definitely be beneficial to the Psychic Research Institute. But Higu must have wanted Chen Ming to stay. But Chen Ming had already made his decision before, and he would not change it easily unless there was really a huge impact. So now he directly replied to Higu, "I can stay for a while." Because among these projects, there are indeed ones that I am particularly interested in, namely the technical research on the development of anti-machine weapons and the means of anti-machine warfare, and the specialized cultivation plan for artificial awakening nerves. But after the war started, I had to go back to the branch. This answer was acceptable to Higu, but Higu asked greedily, "Can't you stay forever?" "I need to go to the front lines." Pity. Higu originally wanted to try to get Chen Ming to move his extraordinary research institute here. But it seemed that there was no hope, so he didn't mention it. Chen Ming had no intention of letting Higu tie down. He added, "It's okay. I will prepare corresponding measures when the time comes. My robot will continue to stay here to do things after I leave. For me, it's easy to do two things at once." With Chen Ming's guarantee, Higu seemed to feel a lot more relaxed. After bringing Chen Ming to the project report meeting, he contacted the two project teams that Chen Ming had just mentioned were interested in. You only need to register Chen Ming into the project teams list, and then Chen Ming can participate in these two projects. However, both projects are currently in the early experimental stages. Basically, the people on the project team have moved to laboratories outside the main city, which is a bit far away. But fortunately, there is a shuttle boat. During these days at the headquarters, Chen Ming also obtained a shuttle boat driving license and took photos. With the permission to move around the planet at will, there is no problem. After finishing things for Chen Ming, Higu returned to the lecture hall of the project report meeting and sat next to Chen Ming. It can only be said that Chen Ming suddenly felt that this moment was a little familiar. Last time, after sitting in the lecture hall with Higu, he drove a cruiser and arrested a dozen people, causing a big wave. This time, nothing should happen again, right? Chen Ming doesn't know, but hopes not. After sitting down, Higu glanced at the stage where preparations seemed to be going on. So I chatted with Chen Ming and said, "Have you just read all the projects? Do you have any opinions on my project?" Although he was asking for his opinion, Chen Ming knew that Higu was actually asking him if he had any ideas. As for Chen Ming, your project, the civilian use of psychic technology, I think is quite promising. The high development of psychic energy will inevitably be accompanied by its popularization, but the Empire currently does not seem to have the soil for the popularization of psychic energy, so I have no plans to continue working in this area for the time being. Higu invited him mainly because the Purgatory Core and the Synchrotron Core that Chen Ming had previously studied tended to move closer to civilian use. But that was also because they had such a design, so Chen Ming chose to refuse. He was so busy with his own things that he really didn't have time to help others get things he didn't want to get. Chen Ming's refusal was not what Higu expected. Most psychics have not had enough time to improve themselves, and few people would think about the direction of civilianization of psychic technology. He was just asking. While waiting for the report meeting to start, the two chatted for a few more words. And Higu asked Chen Ming a new question a few minutes later. It seems that the headquarters approved a catalytic core for you some time ago. How is the progress of that? Chen Ming became excited when he mentioned this and said, "It is still under research, but this thing is very interesting. It is currently the most technologically advanced thing in all the shining civilizations I know about." Higu was also aroused by Chen Ming's words. Because he knew that the number of catalytic cores was extremely rare, and there were not many captured in the entire empire. Coupled with Chen Ming's words, it really made people very curious. "Tell me?" "Well," Chen Ming thought for a while and said, "I'll show you a real thing directly." He reached out from his pocket and took out a small bottle with a transparent liquid in it. This is one of the catalysts produced by the catalytic core. As for the effect, come on, stretch out your hand. Higu stretched out his hand very cooperatively, and he was not worried that Chen Ming would hurt him. Chen Ming opened the small bottle and poured a drop of liquid directly into Higu's palm. This drop of liquid did not have any spiritual energy fluctuations and was immediately absorbed by his skin. Try using spiritual energy. At Chen Ming's reminder, Higu immediately tried to call for spiritual energy fluctuations. Then he found that when his mental power was converted into spiritual energy fluctuations that could be perceived, this drop of liquid absorbed by his skin was actually promoting this process, accelerating the efficiency of converting his mental power into spiritual energy fluctuations. There is no spiritual energy fluctuation, but it can amplify spiritual energy, an interesting thing. This is the catalyst. Although catalysts are usually not consumed, because catalysts will not participate in any reaction or participate in the reaction, but will eventually return to their original state. But the catalyst produced by the catalytic core will naturally annihilate and disappear directly, without any trace. Chen Ming had no way to solve this problem, but after combining the effect of the catalyst, Chen Ming felt that this situation was still acceptable. After all, the real effect of the catalyst is more powerful and more diverse than what Chen Ming has shown now. It not only catalyzes the conversion of mental power into psychic energy fluctuations, it also has the ability to catalyze the conversion of psychic energy fluctuations into real effects. The only difference is the catalytic effect specified when Chen Ming uses the catalytic core. Any catalyst that Chen Ming needs can be produced by Chen Ming controlling the catalytic core. Chen Ming even feels that he can use the catalytic core to create a catalyst that can promote the growth of the fairy tree. This is also one of the sources of Chen Ming's confidence in cultivating the fairy tree. Higu continued to use mental power to convert psychic energy fluctuations until the catalyst was completely annihilated. He looked up and said to Chen Ming, "To be honest, you must contact me when the results of this thing come out. This thing is so interesting. And I found that it seems that all the devices made from the Shining Civilization have the potential for ordinary people to use. I feel that my project can start from these aspects." "No problem." Chen Ming agreed. Anyway, the final results will be submitted to the Psychic Research Institute for review, and it is completely okay to tell Higu. Before he finishes his research on the catalytic core, he has to find a way to grab a few more catalytic cores. This is a real good thing. The report started with a casual chat between Chen Ming and Higu. It lasted for more than 2 hours. Basically, everything about the mechanical race was explained clearly compared to the Empire's previous understanding of the mechanical race. It also included the mechanized psychic creatures and the new main weapons of the mechanical race, which Higu had told Chen Ming last time. There were also some more detailed changes, such as the change in the proportion of Bayun steel and the Bayun steel alloy used by the mechanical race. This means that the mechanical race can produce more mechanical bodies with less material while ensuring the strength of the individual mechanical race. There is also the overall range of the mechanical race star field. It can be seen that the mechanical race has actually been expanding. Even if the Empire does not fight against the mechanical race now, the mechanical race may take the initiative to fight against them in the future. In general, the report meeting was quite rewarding. If there are similar reports in the future, you can listen to them more. The academic atmosphere of the Psychic Research Institute is quite good. And after the report meeting, Higu was of course ready to leave. But before leaving, he told Chen Ming, both project teams have clearly responded that they welcome you. But overall welcome does not mean that everyone welcomes you. Some people may think that you are trying to steal the credit. Please bear with it. If you have any questions, please contact me or the president. Can you help me solve the problem? No, but I can call the director for you. Higu raised his mouth and said, just kidding, because I used to do research with the director, and later I became independent to do civilian psychic technology, so other people will give me face more or less. There will be someone to receive you when you go. But people also need time to prepare. If you go there today, at most you can just look around there by yourself, nothing more. Chen Ming readily agreed and said, then I'll go tomorrow. I can just arrange the time. Well, remember to come and see me when you have time after you finish the 2 projects over there. I will. Higu turned and left, disappearing around the corner of the lecture hall. Chen Ming also left the lecture hall and boarded his own shuttle. He then took the initiative to contact the 2 departments he was going to join. It's not a good time to go there today, but it's always a good idea to contact them in advance. After the contact, there should be nothing important here at the headquarters for the time being. The rest is the same as before. Do what you should do. The prosthesis left at the headquarters is conducting research on a closer relationship with the mechanical family. The robots in the branch continue to study the catalytic core under his control. The characters have been assigned, so they can proceed step by step. Chen Ming finally has enough experience to do a few things that he can't wait for, and the Queen of Insects can't wait for either. Chen Ming, who was on the shuttle, took out the 2 fairy tree seeds he had just received. Although the fairy tree seeds that emitted fluorescence were held in his hands, he did not feel anything special at this time, as if it was just an apple-sized nut. Apart from emitting fluorescence, it seemed to have no feeling with spiritual energy and fairy trees, and there was no spiritual energy fluctuation. However, as long as the fairy tree seeds were scanned by mental power, it would be found that the shell of the seeds almost blocked all the penetration of mental power. I don't know how the Queen of Insects sensed that this fairy tree seed was very special. It was also fortunate that he deliberately changed 2, one of which was used to feed the Queen of Insects who was already impatient. After Chen Ming released his attitude to the Queen of Insects that he could feed it, there was a joyful mood from the Queen of Insects. However, this time the Queen of Insects did not grow tentacles directly on Chen Ming, but wanted Chen Ming to send the fairy tree seeds to her side. Chen Ming would definitely meet this small request. His mental power was immediately activated, and the fairy tree seeds were sent to the Queen of Insects planet. By the way, he took a look at the planet where the Queen of Insects was. It can only be said that the expansion of the hive planet is still continuing, and the hive is still expanding deeper underground. Although Chen Ming had already prepared for the Queen to migrate at that time, it can only be said that the existence of a large number of Zerg individuals made the Zerg unable to stop gnawing on the planet. Zerg need nutrition to survive. So Chen Ming acquiesced to the Queen's behavior and was also thinking about how to slightly limit the appetite of the Zerg. Anyway, after the Queen has completed the transformation of the jump engine and moved to a new place, the Zerg can eat any planet at will. There are planets for the Zerg to eat in the entire universe. But the problem is that the assimilation efficiency of the jump engine is very low. Chen Ming has fed the entire cruiser to the Queen for almost half a year. All the other things added up only took 3 or 4 months, but the transformation of this jump engine took up a considerable amount of time. Even the Queen would come to Chen Ming from time to ask some questions about the jump engine technology. Obviously because of the transformation problem of the jump engine. If it was a general question, it would be fine. Chen Ming has mastered all the basic technologies of the cruiser level and can easily give an answer. But the Queen of Worms is not good at language. Chen Ming has been teaching for a long time, but the Queen of Worms still can't speak. This makes Chen Ming very tired every time he communicates with the Queen of Worms, especially the complex technology of the jump engine. It is really a headache to explain it to the Queen of Worms. But fortunately, Chen Ming can barely explain the problem clearly every time. Although the Queen of Worms has not yet come up with a result, it should be soon. At this time, with Chen Ming's spiritual power, the fairy tree seeds were sent to the Queen of Worms. The Queen of Worms shook her bloated body and opened her mouth to swallow the seeds. However, it did not swallow it directly, but began to chew it. Chen Ming was a little surprised to see this scene, because this was the first time he saw the Queen of Worms eating with her body. And it was a complete process of swallowing, chewing, swallowing, and digestion. Normally, the Queen of Insects would use several tentacles with mouthparts to swallow the food in a few bites, and then use the special characteristics of the Zerg and Chen Ming's psychic power to transform the food into what she needs. And today's way of eating is obviously a special case. I don't know what kind of changes the Queen of Insects will have after eating the fairy tree seeds. Just when Chen Ming was looking forward to it, he suddenly saw that the shell on the head of the Queen of Insects suddenly cracked. And under this crack, a plant-shaped bud grew out at a speed visible to the naked eye. What Cordyceps sinensis? A strange idea just appeared in Chen Ming's mind. I saw that the bud quickly grew into a plant, and a small flower bloomed at the tip. And at the same time as the flower withered, a large amount of biomass overflowed from the Queen of Insects' body, completely wrapped up the Queen of Insects, forming a huge cocoon. The Queen of Insects once again entered the evolutionary state. Although the evolution of the Queen of Insects is definitely a happy thing, Chen Ming just planned to migrate recently. Why did it evolve at this time? But it's not a big problem. The cocoon, which was different from the past and emitted a faint fluorescent light, not only wrapped up the entire queen worm, but also wrapped up the cruiser-level biological spacecraft that the queen worm now had. Of course, it also included the jump engine that had not been completely transformed. Perhaps soon, the queen worm would appear in front of him with a biological cruiser with complete jump functions. After confirming that the queen worm still had the ability to protect herself, Chen Ming turned his attention back to his body. In addition to the queen worm, Chen Ming's own body also had one thing to do. Something related to the awakening nerve. Chen Ming should have 3 awakening nerves, 2 of which he had obtained before, and 1 he had just obtained. However, one of the ones he had obtained before was fed to the queen worm, and Chen Ming had been cultivating the other one in the afterglow method. It can be used for the extraction experiment of the awakening nerve at any time. And Chen Ming had 2 psychics in the refrigerator, in the low-temperature hibernation chamber. The black fog psychic and the heart psychic. The psychic powers of both of them are very valuable. As for who to choose as the first guinea pig, Chen Ming also had a suitable candidate in mind. At this time, above the orbit of the temporary base of Chen Ming's Yuhui fleet after the 3rd jump. At the highest point, Chen Ming was walking out of his specially divided study room. The outside was decorated by him, so that the overall decoration looked like the corridor of a laboratory. At the end of the corridor was the experimental area where all the research equipment that Chen Ming could collect to help him and Xiaofan's research was installed. This place has been isolated and partitioned by Chen Ming using high-strength composite glass materials and silent alloy interlayers. Because different experiments have different environmental requirements. So Chen Ming even modified part of the experimental area. When necessary, these areas can even move part of the experimental area to the outside of the spacecraft through changes in the structure of the spacecraft. In the experimental area, most of the area has been filled with various experimental equipment. But in the center of the experimental area, there is an area that Chen Ming deliberately left empty. This is where he installed the chilling neural extractor. Chen Ming walked to the vacated area. He activated the psychic power that he had controlled the chilling nerve extractor more than a year ago. In a warehouse in Yuhui Star region, the chilling nerve extractor just disappeared there. It appeared in front of Chen Ming. Yuhui has been maintaining this equipment, and it is well maintained and can be started at any time. With the arrival of the chilling nerve extractor, A frozen fresh-keeping cabin was also transported to the side by Chen Ming, who controlled the equipment on the spacecraft. This first experiment started with the black mist psychic. The hibernation function of the low-temperature hibernation cabin was turned off by Chen Ming. The black mist psychic gradually woke up from the freezing. As soon as he woke up, he reached out to his waist, but his long sword had disappeared. "Are you looking for this?" Chen Ming's voice sounded in his ears. The black mist psychic looked in the direction of the sound, and Chen Ming was holding his sword in his hand. His face changed, and he said nothing, just wanting to activate his psychic power and escape. But he couldn't do it. An extremely terrifying spiritual pressure was locked on him, suppressing his spiritual power. It was a pure mental suppression, and he could not resist at all. The black mist psychic said in a deep voice, "What are you going to do?" "It's just a small operation. Don't worry, it's just like drawing blood. It will be over soon, as long as you cooperate." Chen Ming still remembers the steps when Hui conducted experiments on him. It is best to ensure the activity of the spiritual power of the psychic whose spiritual nerves are extracted. Then Chen Ming must first thaw the black mist psychic to ensure that his mental state is fine. "If I cooperate, will you let me go?" "You are not qualified to bargain with me," Chen Ming said threateningly. "You can only choose to cooperate, or I will help you cooperate." The black mist psychic was captured alive by Chen Ming when he was hiding from Chen Ming. From his perspective, he was captured alive and woke up here immediately after being frozen. He didn't know how much time had passed outside. He only knew that Chen Ming was much stronger than before. He was powerless to resist. He didn't have the courage to commit suicide. He could only be forced to accept all this and accept the experiments that Chen Ming might conduct on him. He never thought that he, as Wu Jing, would have such a day. Shortly after Chen Ming took away the chilling nerve extraction device, Hui discovered that important items were missing from the warehouse. In the network of the Kletka supercomputer replica in the Afterglow star territory, several alpha-level Afterglow cores immediately gathered together urgently. Communicate and discuss countermeasures. They once chose to block the entire star field directly after Chen Ming left them a mess, and wiped out all individuals who had any connection with Chen Ming, just to eliminate Chen Ming's influence on their star field. But there is still no clear result to determine whether they have completely eliminated Chen Ming's influence. But now Chen Ming's action is almost equivalent to turning all the actions Hui has ever done into a waste of time. They couldn't determine how much influence Chen Ming still had, and they couldn't have any countermeasures against Chen Ming who had left the Afterglow star territory. An Alpha Afterglow core asks the most important questions of the moment. What to do? They did not argue about why they did not choose to kill Chen Ming directly in the first place, but chose to extract the spiritual nerve. It is pointless to argue about what has happened. Not to mention that extracting Chen Ming's spiritual enlightenment nerve was an order from their large army. The chilling nerve extraction device was also sent from there. All Afterglow can do here is continue as it has happened. But for them, they can also think that they have not failed, because there is still a possibility that the only one in the entire storage warehouse that has been extracted from chilling nerve was the one that Chen Ming had personally come into contact with, so it was taken away. And nothing else was affected. In addition, their control over the middle and lower level Afterhui cores has been extremely strict since Chen Ming arrived, to an unprecedented degree. And Chen Ming had not made any move for so long, and it was only today that he took away a chilling nerve extraction device. Combined, and based on Chen Ming's past expansion speed, even if Hui had taken many measures, Chen Ming would have captured the entire star field long ago. But Chen Ming didn't do that. There is a very high probability that it is because Chen Ming cannot do this. Chen Mingzhen has lost control of most of the Afterglow in their Afterglow star field. It was purely because Chen Ming needed to use the chilling nerve extraction device now that he took this device away. This is indeed a theoretical possibility, but there are still objections from Alpha Afterglow. Because psychers become stronger. Hui didn't know enough about psychic powers to be sure how far Chen Ming had grown. Moreover, Hui did not have an excellent intelligence network within the Empire and could only rely on some electronic warfare hacking techniques to try to obtain information. They did not know what had happened after Chen Ming left for more than a year, but they can determine that Chen Ming will grow rapidly through the time that Chen Ming stayed with them. They could not completely deny that Chen Ming had grown to the point where he could secretly control the entire star field. There is even a possibility. That is, the entire Afterglow star territory has fallen in Chen Ming's hands. Only Kleka was not completely controlled by Chen Ming because his galaxy had completely cut off physical contact with the outside world since Chen Ming's incident. Alpha Afterglow, the master of the Kleka simulator, silenced all other Alpha Afterglows from talking. It gave the order directly. The mission of the individuals in this star field is to distract the attention of the human empire for the main force. Destruction is our inevitable outcome. In the past 3 months, we have investigated the movements of the Empire near the Gallo star territory. A war will break out between the Empire and the machine race. We can perform our final mission here. Even if we are still being infiltrated by Chen Ming, there will still be individuals who are not controlled by him. Let us find a suitable time to go to the place where the war between the human empire and the machine race is about to break out. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. At the headquarters, Chen Ming is on the right track again after getting used to the Psychic Research Institute. Both research groups have accepted him and allowed him to participate in their actual experiments. Over at the branch, the robot equipped with the Afterglow core controlled by him has also controlled the entire branch in his hands. The already monolithic branch was completely built into a solid barrier. No one or any external force can destroy this situation. Chen Ming's body is also about to begin experiments on extracting spiritual nerves from black mist psychers. Chen Ming plans to conduct experiments himself. Of course, getting started is actually just pressing the start button of the device. But he needs to experience the whole process personally and understand the principle of chilling nerve extraction device so that he can use it next time, or in the future, or when someone uses similar methods on him. The reason why Chen Ming only started the experiment 2 days after thawing the black mist psycher. This is because the chilling nerve extraction laboratory requires all kinds of preparations, including the environment that restricts psychers and the preparation of various drugs that need to be used during the experiment. In addition, even the black mist psycher needs to be raised for 2 days. Chen Ming still clearly remembers what Yu Hui did when he performed the Ling nerve extraction experiment on him. So now, all kinds of drugs and equipment used to stabilize the mind and enhance mental power, all kinds of instruments and equipment, Chen Ming used them all on the upper black mist psychic without reservation. Until yesterday, even if Chen Ming continued to give him various mental supplements and used equipment such as neural overclocking instruments, the mental state of the black mist psychic had no longer changed. Continuing to raise him would only be a waste of medicine. It was time to start the experiment. Just as Chen Ming was about to start, the black mist psychic was sitting quietly by the bed where he rested. He felt something was wrong, very wrong, very wrong. He had felt a chill from Chen Ming since 2 days ago. He didn't dare to say much, didn't dare to ask more, and could only silently enjoy the various things Chen Ming gave him. He kept strengthening himself, trying to use the mental power increase obtained by the things Chen Ming gave him to escape from Chen Ming's hands. Even now he still had hope. Chen Ming could see Black Mist's thoughts, but he didn't stop him. Because although the psychic effect of the Black Mist psychic was very good, his own psychic talent was not good. Chen Ming, an outsider, clearly discovered that the Black Mist psychic had now reached the peak of his ability that could be achieved in a short period of time by relying on various external means. And the peak of the Black Mist psychic could not even touch Chen Ming's lower limit now. He could never get rid of Chen Ming's psychic suppression and had no chance to struggle. But he himself had not even realized that he had reached his limit and was still dreaming of escaping. But this might be a good thing. After all, this would actually make the Black Mist psychic's mental state better. The process of the experiment might be smoother. On the morning of the 3rd day after Chen Ming awakened the Black Mist psychic, Chen Ming finally gave the Black Mist psychic some psychic drugs he had accumulated before and gave him a neural overclocking device. Chen Ming did not send him back to the room like he did the previous 2 days, but stood outside the room where the neural overclocking device was placed and waved to him and said, "Follow me." The Black Mist psychic suddenly felt nervous and subconsciously wanted to resist. But he immediately realized that he did not have the power to compete with Chen Ming yet, so he could only do as he was told. Following Chen Ming, he came to the independent room where the chilling nerve extractor was installed. When he saw this small room, a chill rose from his tailbone all the way to the top of his head. This seemed to be a room made of a composite material made of silent alloy and some transparent materials. The instruments in this room were shaped like an operating table, surrounded by dense mechanical arms and restraints that could tie people tightly to it, which also gave him a sense of crisis as if death was coming. All signs indicate that this equipment will be terrifying. The Black Mist psychic subconsciously took a step back in front of the door. As soon as he stepped back, a mechanical arm suddenly grabbed him. As soon as the Black Mist psychic turned around, a tall robot stretched out its mechanical arm to grab his other arm and lifted him directly into the air. The Black Mist psychic was completely panicked and kept shouting, "No! Let me go. I beg you. I don't want to die." Chen Ming looked at the Black Mist psychic, crying with a cold expression, without showing any sympathy. He said to the Black Mist psychic, "I hope to hear from you that you responded to the pleas of ordinary people when you captured them for experiments in Zwudging. Can you?" The Black Mist psychic hesitated for a moment and then shouted, "Yes, of course I can. I am also a human being, and I feel bad to see people become like that. I have already let many people go privately. How can I not, really?" Chen Ming did not respond, but picked up the terminal and clicked a few times, projecting a picture in front of him. It was a surveillance picture of a certain base in Zwudging. The Black Mist psychic was escorting a group of ordinary people who were kidnapped or lured into a certain experimental facility belonging to Yuhui. And in this process, just because an ordinary person looked up and looked at him, perhaps because there was hatred or anger in his eyes, the Black Mist psychic suddenly found this person alone, took the iron rod he picked up, and beat the ordinary person to death while he was begging for mercy with screams. I have personally witnessed the process of you arresting ordinary people and sending them to the laboratory. Chen Ming put away the terminal and said, "This situation shouldn't be what you asked for, right?" The Black Mist psychic saw his lie being exposed in front of him, and his body, which was caught by the robot, suddenly shook like a sieve. "Everything you did is here. Also, guess where this video came from?" The Black Mist psychic suddenly froze. Could it be? Chen Ming did not give him more time to think. "Okay, it's time to go up. Don't worry, this is just an experiment similar to drawing blood." Chen Ming smiled as he spoke. But this smile was no different from the devil smiling at him in the eyes of the Black Mist psychic. The robot pressed the Black Mist psychic to the spiritual extraction instrument. He was still struggling desperately, but after losing his psychic power, he was just a stronger ordinary person in terms of physical fitness. He was pressed on the instrument by the robot and tied with all the restraints. Chen Ming installed the can containing the awakening nerve into the instrument and pressed the start button. All that was left was to watch. In addition to maintaining the blockade of the Black Mist psychic's own conversion of mental power into psychic effects, Chen Ming's psychic power also increased the depth perception of the Black Mist psychic's body. The Black Mist psychic suddenly felt that all the secrets of his body were exposed to Chen Ming's eyes. This feeling as if he was being filmed by countless surveillance cameras all the time made him extremely panicked. But he could not do anything. He could not struggle free from the shackles on his body, and begging for mercy could not shake Chen Ming's iron heart. He could only wait to die here like the man he had beaten to death. After the awakening nerve extractor was activated, just like before, the extractor sent the specially cultivated awakening nerve to the Black Mist psychic's eyes. However, it was slightly different from what he had seen with his own eyes. When this spiritual awakening nerve was sent to the eyes of the Black Mist psychic, the instrument also injected something into the spiritual awakening nerve, something that came with the instrument, not something that needed to be prepared later. The injection of this thing made the spiritual awakening nerve, which had already been specially cultivated, more vigorous, like some kind of fat and ferocious insect, constantly testing the Black Mist psychic. The Black Mist psychic was so scared that he dared only close his eyes and dared not face it. But immediately, A mechanical arm stretched out and forced the eyelids of the black mist psychic to open. And the spiritual awakening nerve also crawled into the eye socket of the black mist psychic and went deep into his brain. The black mist psychic immediately fell into a coma. The instrument next to it showed that the spiritual awakening nerve that entered the black mist psychic's brain was contacting the spiritual awakening nerve belonging to the black mist psychic. The foreign spiritual awakening nerve was entangled with the black mist spiritual awakening nerve, like a python strangling, constantly shrinking. A psychic wave that seemed to be nothing emanated from the artificial awakening nerve and wrapped around the black fog awakening nerve. Then, some tiny cracks suddenly appeared on the surface of the artificial awakening nerve. It was not quite accurate to say that it was a crack, because when Chen Ming used his own perception to touch it, he found that the psychic waves in these cracks were all fixed in the shape of sharp ring-shaped mouthparts. These cracks were simply the countless mouths of this artificial awakening nerve, and the black fog swallowed up the awakening nerve bit by bit. The body of the black fog psychic suddenly began to twitch. His awakening nerve was being eaten, and he fell into instinctive madness. After detecting the instability of mental power, several mechanical arms immediately raised up, and after reinforcing the restraints on the black fog psychic, some sedatives prepared by Chen Ming were injected into his body. The black fog psychic was in the painful madness of nerve damage and the calmness forced down by the drugs at the same time. This scene made Chen Ming feel some phantom pain. If he hadn't brought the spirit stone with him and used the mental pulse to make the awakening nerve that was about to drill into his brain stupid, his awakening nerve might have been devoured long ago. Of course, it is also possible that Chen Ming turned into a mind-running entity directly after the awakening nerve was devoured. But if Chen Ming had turned into a mind-running entity at that time, he would definitely not have the current consciousness strength to resist the chaos. Chen Ming might have become a real monster at that time. Fortunately, there are no ifs. A few minutes later, there was only one awakening nerve left in the brain of the black mist psychic, the artificial awakening nerve that was still connected to the awakening nerve extractor. After confirming that there was no original awakening nerve in the brain of the black mist psychic, the awakening nerve extractor slowly extracted the awakening nerve that drilled into the brain from the eye socket. The artificial awakening nerve was stained with a dark color. It is now a still alive awakening nerve with specific abilities. And at the same time as the awakening nerve was extracted, the black mist psychic suddenly started to bleed from the nose. This is not the damage to the nasal mucosa, but his brain. The chilling nerve extractor seems to be only responsible for extraction and the life safety of the subjects during the extraction process. The extraction experiment has ended and will not care about the life and death of the subjects. If Chen Ming really doesn't care, the black mist psychic will die completely in a few minutes. Although Chen Ming doesn't care about the death of a left-wing element, when he thinks of the evil deeds committed by the left-wing elements that he has witnessed with his own eyes, no matter how painful the death is, it will make Chen Ming feel comfortable and happy. But he wants to see what will happen if a psychic survives after the chilling nerve is extracted. So he decided to save him first. Through psychic monitoring, Chen Ming carefully looked at the symptoms of the black mist psychic. It can be basically determined that the fight between the two chilling nerves in his brain caused slight damage to his brain. Normally, this extremely minor damage, even in the brain, can be cured as long as the medicine is used properly. But the black mist psychic has another symptom in his brain at this time: mental power overload. After his spiritual awakening nerves were extracted, his body could no longer bear the mental power he still had in his body. The solution was not too difficult. Just find a way to consume his mental power and then use the medicine. Chen Ming solved the problem in just a dozen seconds. After ensuring that the black mist psychic would be fine for the time being, Chen Ming left him aside. What Chen Ming is most interested in now is the dark awakening nerve. This set of black mist awakening nerves has been completely extracted and stored in a tank filled with nutrient solution. It is still full of activity, as if it only needs to be implanted to provide its power to the new owner. Of course, this is just an appearance. This awakening nerve obviously needs to be cultivated to adapt to the environment after leaving the human body before the next experiment. However, if it looks very active, It can also prove the freshness of this awakening nerve in disguise. It's not a bad thing after all. Chen Ming is still very satisfied with this result. As for the next use of this awakening nerve, Chen Ming actually hasn't thought about it yet. First of all, it is impossible to directly hand over the awakening nerve to anyone other than him, because the existence of the awakening nerve extractor itself is a threat to psychics. Even if the Shining Civilization actually has more than one awakening nerve extractor, sooner or later the next one will be found by the Empire. Chen Ming would never show the spiritual awakening nerve extractor and what it can do. This is definitely not a good thing for psychics. Since it cannot be handed over, Chen Ming can only digest it internally. Direct physical digestion is definitely not possible. Some other methods must be used to digest the ability of the black mist spiritual awakening nerve. Although Enwupiing seems to be the most suitable subject for the implantation experiment, Enwupiing has a chaos core in his body that is mixed with various psychic effects. And this chaos core itself has the power of black fog. Therefore, Enwupiing does not actually need this spiritual awakening nerve. Chen Ming wants to use his prosthesis a little bit. Anyway, the worst case is that it will become a mental runaway entity. Even if it changes, it doesn't matter. Chen Ming can kill his prosthesis and collect the source of chaos. However, he has another choice, which is a new prosthesis. After experiencing the Scarlet, Chen Ming's consciousness strength has greatly increased. Controlling more prostheses at the same time is no longer a problem. And a prosthesis with black fog psychic power is definitely a very good choice. But it also has problems. After all, the black mist psychic was killed by him when he assassinated him and Baiquan in public. Once there is another black mist psychic active, it is very likely that someone will associate him with him and guess that he has the ability to control living creatures. So Chen Ming is still struggling with the next use of this spiritual awakening nerve. He is even thinking about why the Shining Civilization once created the spiritual awakening nerve extractor. If he figures this out, he may have an idea. He still has time. After all, the spiritual awakening nerve has been extracted and can be preserved for a long time. As for the next implantation experiment, Chen Ming actually has no idea. Because the spiritual awakening nerve extractor only extracts, not implants. And Chen Ming extracts the spiritual awakening nerve purely with equipment, let alone implantation. If he wants to implant the spiritual awakening nerve, he must learn it. He has to go to the Psychic Research Institute and the Shining Civilization Research Institute for a while. So when Chen Ming told Higu about the project he wanted to participate in, he participated in the project called Specialized Cultivation Program for Artificial Spiritual Awakening Nerves. This project is not just about cultivating special spiritual awakening nerves. The implantation of the awakening nerve is also an experiment that must be carried out for this project. Chen Ming can follow along and even directly participate in some research projects on the implantation of the awakening nerve. It is only because this project is somewhat related to the awakening nerve extractor and has an implantation link that Chen Ming chose it. He still needs to spend some time preparing for the implantation of the awakening nerve and the second extraction of the awakening nerve. Then, based on the results of the second extraction of the awakening nerve and the results of the first implantation of the awakening nerve, consider his attitude towards Yin Xiong in the future. He still needs time. Just after Chen Ming had thought clearly about what he was going to do in the next period of time, Chen Ming suddenly received an urgent message. His cruiser was attacked. It was the Colossus class that was transporting energy crystal crabs to the Empire and was attacked by the mechanical race. On the direct line between Chen Ming's foreign development stronghold and the Empire's border, it was still quite far away from the Empire. Chen Ming's fleet transporting energy crystal crabs encountered a fleet from the mechanical tribe here. Since the last time Chen Ming and Baiquan agreed to hand over the development rights of crystal crab technology and the crystal crab population to the Legion, Chen Ming has already arranged the process of transporting the crystal crabs back to the Empire. He prepared a cargo fleet with the Colossus-class heavy cargo ship he now owned as the flagship and planned to return slowly through the hyperspace channel. A total of 1 cruiser, 20 destroyers, and 20 escorts. The quantity is not large, but it is just enough to transport the sufficient number of energy crystal crabs that Chen Ming mentioned before. Although according to Chen Ming's current ability, the fleet can simply make 3 extreme distance jumps to reach the Empire. The rest is left to the Legion, and the Legion can think of ways to take away the crystal crab. But if the supplies arrive too quickly, it will be difficult to cooperate with Bai Quan. After all, when the energy crystal crabs arrive in the Legion, they must seize the time to start cultivating the energy crystal crabs and obtain energy crystals. But when Chen Ming agreed, Bai Quan had just started to join the Special Materials Department. Although there are many positions available in this department, no results can be obtained without wrangling for a few days. And once the crystal crabs are actually delivered, more people will definitely have ideas about these locations. It is better to wait for Bai Quan to occupy more positions in the Special Materials Department. Then Chen Ming transported the supplies to the right place, which just matched them. Besides, the jump requires far more materials than normal navigation to maintain the jump engine, and continuous jumps consume not only materials but also mental energy. Chen Ming is not in a hurry about transporting crystal crabs, so he might as well take his time. At least wait until Bai Quan is almost done, or the fleet really encounters something before making the jump. And under normal circumstances, Chen Ming's route to the Empire is quite safe. At most, only the last section, where it borders the Empire, Afterglow, and the machine race, is more dangerous. So Chen Ming's idea is to let the fleet fly slowly in hyperspace. He thought the journey would go smoothly, but unexpectedly something happened. Moreover, the location where the accident occurred was not the most dangerous section of the road. Instead, it was at a location where the cruiser almost made an extreme jump. There is still a certain distance from the mechanical ray star field. Why here? Chen Ming didn't understand, but he immediately switched his vision to the Colossus level, transporting the energy crystal crab. This Colossus has been controlled by him personally from the beginning. Although there is no Afterglow core on it, as long as Chen Ming needs it, the Afterglow core can take over at any time and control the ship for battle. However, as a cargo ship, the Colossus class mainly transports cargo and has little combat effectiveness. And for Chen Ming, this batch of goods is the most important. Even with his spiritual protection during the battle, it would be difficult for him to guarantee that the goods would not be damaged. So when Chen Ming switched his field of view, the idea in his mind was to retreat as much as possible and not to get entangled with the mechanical tribe. With the activation of Chen Ming's psychic power, an additional picture appeared in front of his eyes, the picture of the Colossus level sensor. Through the door of the screen, you can see that the Colossus is in a hyperspace channel. All around, dense clouds. After all, this place is far away from the Empire and any existence capable of exploring hyperspace. Therefore, in this area that has only been developed by Chen Ming's highest point, hyperspace clouds have become the only main color. At the front end of the narrow hyperspace channel that ended up was the mechanical fleet that attacked Chen Ming's fleet. At a glance, the number of cruisers alone is already more than 10, and the number of lower-level spaceships is not to mention. And this was a surprise attack initiated by the machine tribe. So in fact, just now, Chen Ming was reminded by the afterglow of the escort fleet. The machines have entered the range where they can fire. Their cruisers have begun attacking. The concentrated fire of large weapons from more than a dozen cruisers put the Colossus's shield at risk, and it could only barely resist. But outside the line of fire of the exchange of fire, there are still a large number of mechanical gang jumping troops approaching. Fortunately, there were no losses in the escort fleet. When they discovered the attack of the mechanical cruiser, they hid behind the shield opened by the Colossus. Now Chen Ming's attention is all here. It is not a problem to recover the afterglow core while the ship is destroyed. The problem now is that Chen Ming only has one cruiser, which cannot defeat the dozen or so cruisers of the mechanical race. Although he can increase the speed by overclocking various parts of the spacecraft, the increase cannot reach 10 times. A pair of dozens of people, or a pair of dozens of cargo ships, can't beat them at all. It is impossible for Chen Ming to let the Colossus stay here. What's more, what he just saw was the mechanical race at one end of the channel, in the direction of the fleet. In fact, behind the fleet, at the other end of the channel, there is also a fleet of mechanical clan approaching. The scale is exactly the same as the machine family cut off earlier. Being attacked from both sides, 1 to 20, If you don't run away, why should you stay and wait for death? Chen Ming immediately tried the means at hand to escape from the enemy fleet. But the mechanical tribe was obviously well prepared. The pulse blocking device disrupted the hyperspace channel system of all ships in Chen Ming's fleet. The fleet could not leave hyperspace or use the hyperspace channel jump engine. The real jump engine was also blocked by the mechanical race from the front and back. If in a normal universe environment, Chen Ming's ship would fly out easily with such a small blockade distance. But now, his fleet is in hyperspace. There is only a narrow channel as the only space for movement. The channel is surrounded by extremely dense channel clouds. The mechanical race really only needs to block this section of the channel. Unless Chen Ming rushes directly into the cloud, bypasses the mechanical race's blockade fleet, and tries to escape. But there are obviously problems to be solved in doing so. The hyperspace lightning flashing in the hyperspace channel cloud will form a disturbance in the circuit network and signal network of the ship when it hits the ship. This disturbance will greatly hinder the normal operation of the equipment and interfere with the stability of all systems. Of course, this also includes the jump system. The ship cannot jump in the hyperspace channel. In other words, if Chen Ming cannot get rid of the pursuit of the mechanical fleet and cannot find the channel in the cloud, then his fleet will be constantly destroyed by the lightning in the cloud. Once the fleet is lost in the hyperspace channel cloud, the result is unimaginable. But corresponding to the risk of getting lost is a battle between a cruiser and more than 20 cruisers. Obviously, compared with the threat of the hyperspace channel, the mechanical fleet is more terrifying. It is still necessary to retreat into the cloud first and wait for the arrival of reinforcements. And Chen Ming had already notified several Alpha-class afterglows to prepare for battle when he received the news just now. Now the distance between the freight fleet and the temporary base is only one extreme jump distance. As long as Chen Ming's reinforcements arrive, they can fight. As long as he delays for 5 minutes, giving him 5 minutes to assemble the fleet, he can immediately kill the attacking mechanical race. Under Chen Ming's control, the Colossus class and the escort fleet directly rushed into the hyperspace cloud beside the channel, bearing the bombardment of countless lightning and hiding in the cloud. While Chen Ming was doing this, he had another idea in his mind. That is, when necessary, he actually has another choice. Abandon this batch of energy crystal crabs, dismantle the fleet directly, and send away the afterglow core. The reason why he had to abandon the energy crystal crabs instead of sending them away like sending away the afterglow core was very simple. Although Chen Ming can already teleport creatures, the transportation of creatures takes the channel of the Scarlet Dimension, and any creature that wants to pass through the Scarlet Dimension safely has 2 prerequisites. One is that it has not experienced dimensional infection. The other is that it is in an unconscious state, or Chen Ming uses psychic energy to block the external perception, to prevent it from being drowned by the ocean of knowledge when passing through the Scarlet Dimension. The former is a condition that is easy to achieve, but the latter requires Chen Ming to spend a lot of mental energy to protect these creatures. And the cargo hold of the entire fleet is stuffed with more than 100,000 energy crystal crabs. If you want to save them all, Chen Ming will not be able to consume enough mental energy. Even if you only save a part of it, it will be enough for Chen Ming to drink a pot. And if you only save a small part, then Chen Ming might as well wait for the next cargo ship to deliver the goods. So as long as Chen Ming didn't want to lose these energy crystal crabs, he could only bear the losses on the ship that might come from the channel cloud or from the mechanical fleet. He chose to bear it. And just after Chen Ming rushed into the cloud, the mechanical fleet followed him like crazy and rushed into the cloud. And what's more exaggerated is that the mechanical family also prepared a device for the exploration ship to remove the hyperspace channel cloud on a cruiser. Even if Chen Ming's fleet entered the cloud first, it didn't take long for the mechanical fleet that came later to catch up. The high-density channel cloud will hinder the speed of the spacecraft sailing in it. Chen Ming, who was sailing in front because of the cloud, had no way to get rid of the mechanical fleet with exploration ship equipment behind him. In just over a minute, Chen Ming's fleet was caught up and entered the range of the mechanical fleet behind. He was forced to open the shield at the rear of the ship to block the firepower from the rear. Fortunately, the mechanical race only installed exploration equipment on one cruiser, and they could only open a channel wide enough to accommodate up to 7 cruisers at the same time. Compared with the previous dozen cruisers, the pressure on 7 cruisers was reduced by nearly half. As long as the shields and armor took turns to bear the damage from the rear, relying on Chen Ming's high-speed repairability, the spacecraft could barely be kept from being destroyed in the face of the concentrated fire of 7 cruisers. However, the fleet that the mechanical race came to attack this time was not only cruisers. They also had those boarding fleets. In the hyperspace channel, all spaceships and everything have an upper speed limit. And this upper speed limit is related to mass. The greater the mass, the smaller the upper limit that can be reached. The upper speed limit that the cruiser's mass cannot reach is obviously far less than the upper speed limit of those small spaceships of the mechanical race equipped for boarding. A large number of boarding ships and assault boats were seen approaching the Colossus class through the channel opened up by the cruisers installed with exploration equipment by the mechanical race. They can threaten the Colossus at any time. Chen Ming had already controlled the Colossus to give up attacking the mechanical cruisers and turn to attack the boarding ships. Some of them still passed the Colossus's shield and rushed into the boarding range. These assault boats with drill-like front ends directly drilled into the Colossus's armor. Even if they were immediately squeezed out by the metal liquid that Chen Ming used to repair the spacecraft, some of the mechanical race still remained in the gap that had just been drilled. They continued to violently destroy the gap that Chen Ming repaired, trying to tear a hole from the outside to enter the interior of the spacecraft. The mechanical race seemed to know the effect of Chen Ming's psychic power. All nearby mechanical bodies were approaching the place with the largest number of boarding individuals and constantly attacking the gap. The destructive power of the concentrated firepower prevented Chen Ming's psychic power from repairing the armor plate in time. The mechanical race's mechanical bodies relied purely on the stacking of the number of attack methods and the fact that Chen Ming's psychic power had a high repair efficiency when acting in a small range, so they forcibly tore open a passage to the Colossus's cargo hold. Although they were immediately counterattacked by the robots that Chen Ming had placed inside the Colossus, the influx of mechanical races was still as difficult to stop as a tide. Some mechanical races charged deeper into the Colossus, while the other mechanical bodies actually chose to unload the cargo holds closest to the gap they opened. And while their number was still enough to maintain the gap, all the unloaded cargo holds were thrown out of the gap. A total of 8 small cargo holds near the gap were all taken away by the mechanical race. A mechanical race cruiser behind also immediately captured the cargo hold that was thrown out and chose to turn around and no longer follow Chen Ming's fleet into the clouds. At the same time as the cruiser turned around, other mechanical race spacecraft also began to slow down and also stopped chasing. Instead, they turned around and left the clouds while covering each other. They directly abandoned the mechanical race troops that were boarding and chose to retreat. Chen Ming looked at this scene, and not only did he not feel fortunate, but his heart sank. Because these mechanical races obviously came with a purpose, and they left only after they achieved their goal. Their goal was to seize the cargo hold, and only after seizing it would they choose to retreat. The mechanical race's fleet retreated outside the hyperspace channel cloud, turned off the device that hindered the jump, activated the jump, and disappeared in front of Chen Ming. Chen Ming's reinforcements had not arrived yet, and he did not dare to chase them in the opposite direction. They could only leave. At this time, less than 4 minutes had passed since Chen Ming received the news that the fleet was attacked. After Chen Ming confirmed that the mechanical race had really left, he quickly cleared out the mechanical race that had entered the cargo ship and returned to the relatively safe channel. Continuing to stay in the channel cloud was a waste of electricity. He was constantly thinking about what was going on in his mind. At present, it seems that the mechanical race is definitely prepared to come at him. A large number of cruisers blocked the channel, and at the same time specially prepared boarding ships to seize the cargo hold. Moreover, the mechanical race actually brought exploration equipment to prevent Chen Ming's fleet from directly rushing into the channel cloud. If you say that the mechanical race is not prepared, Chen Ming doesn't believe it. The question is, when did the mechanical race discover his spaceship? How did they prepare the fleet to surround and attack? Chen Ming usually doesn't use this route at all, and he may have used some spaceships to explore when he was exploring. All the things he obtained from the Empire that needed to be sent to the front line of exploration. The farthest was to transport it to the planet where the mechanical race controlled by Chen Ming was newly stationed, and then use psychic energy to send it to the main body. Although it was quite tiring, Chen Ming had been used to it for a long time, and the training effect on psychic energy was also very good. Therefore, Chen Ming thought about it and thought that the reason why the mechanical race was prepared to attack him was probably related to the recent actions of the Empire. Since Chen Ming said last time that the mechanical race star field was relatively empty in the rear defense of the Empire often sent reconnaissance fleets to bypass the mechanical race star field to conduct reconnaissance. The mechanical race is not stupid, so they will naturally strengthen the defense in the rear and expand the territory belonging to the mechanical race in the rear. Then, by chance, the patrolling or pioneering mechanical fleet discovered Chen Ming's cargo fleet. So after some preparation, they came to attack Chen Ming. But this idea is problematic if you think about it carefully, because normally, the dispatch of the fleet requires not only time but also logistical support. And this is an attack by the mechanical family that is obviously premeditated, planned in advance, and logistically prepared. Not all ships sail like Chen Ming, who do not need to prepare logistics at all. Chen Ming can use psychic energy to meet the fleet's logistics. No matter who else, they have to ensure logistics. This batch of fleets that attacked him obviously also need it. And a temporary base with basic industrial facilities is the best guarantee. From the fact that the mechanical family fleet was able to leave by jumping, Chen Ming can judge that the mechanical family fleet is definitely not jumping to block the road, but sailing. Even if the mechanical family can jump here first, then squat on the road for maintenance, and then come to Chen Ming after the maintenance is completed, then the jump will also lead to the loss of war supplies, resulting in a slight reduction in the combat capability of the ships. But from the feeling of Chen Ming fighting with the mechanical cruiser just now, their combat effectiveness has not been lost at all. They definitely did not jump here. They must have a base nearby. At this time, Chen Ming suddenly thought of the common colonial expansion method used by the Empire, the Mechanical Clan, and Yuhui. That is, first find a suitable galaxy as the core of the star field in the future. Then expand from this core to the surrounding areas. It is very likely that there is a temporary base of the Mechanical Clan in a nearby galaxy, which is the core of their development. You must know that the Mechanical Clan is absolutely fully prepared to attack Chen Ming's fleet. Considering various complex situations, various preparatory measures have been taken. If the Mechanical Clan fleet is calculated based on the premise that it is here to develop, then it is understandable that they bring a cruiser with exploration ship equipment. At the same time, the equipment for blocking the jump engine is something that is not used at all in normal times. After all, unless the entire galaxy is blocked, it is difficult to completely block the whereabouts of a cruiser. However, if this device that blocks the jump engine is used to protect oneself, so that any cruiser that dares to approach and attack the base cannot jump away, it will be very valuable. It can also explain why the fleet that attacked Chen Ming had such a thing. And Chen Ming also subtly sensed the honeycomb network belonging to the mechanical race from the individuals of the mechanical race he just captured alive through the mechanical race honeycomb network he controlled. Chen Ming could vaguely sense that the source of the honeycomb network was not far away. Adding up all these factors, Chen Ming felt that the actual situation should be almost the same as his guess. As for the purpose of the mechanical race doing this, Chen Ming was sure that the mechanical race did not know what he was transporting to the Empire. But they knew that it would definitely not be something random that could be transported from outside the Empire to the Empire. It would be best if they could snatch it back to verify what it was. Anyway, it would not be a loss to kill the Empire's fleet. Let's try it. After determining what the transported things were, they could decide whether to attack Chen Ming's fleet again. If the mechanical race is not stupid, they should soon find out the specialness of the energy crystal crabs, and will definitely find a way to transport the energy crystal crabs away as soon as possible. At the same time, prepare to attack Chen Ming's fleet again. Although Chen Ming will definitely not give the mechanical race this opportunity. But the mechanical race has achieved its initial goal, seizing the cargo hold. The cargo hold is filled with live energy crystal crabs. Although there are several cargo holds that contain energy crystal crabs transformed by Chen Ming using insects, It is not difficult to dispose of these energy crystal crabs. But there are also several cargo holds that contain ordinary energy crystal crabs. If ordinary energy crystal crabs are taken away, the mechanical race may figure out the specialness of energy crystals. Once they breed a new generation of energy crystal crabs, many troublesome things may happen. Chen Ming suddenly has a new understanding of the seriousness of this matter. If the mechanical race really develops the mass production technology of energy crystals, the Empire will probably suffer in the war with the mechanical race. The mechanical race must not be allowed to take away the energy crystal crabs. He has to solve the matter thoroughly. It shouldn't be too difficult, since Chen Ming has confirmed that there must be a base of the mechanical tribe nearby. Then the mechanical tribe will definitely send the cargo hold there. He is going to the base of the mechanical tribe, destroy the base, and take back the cargo hold. He could not defeat them just now, and could only run away because there were too many mechanical tribes, and he only had one rocket. This time, he will take the initiative to launch an attack. However, before Chen Ming really attacks the mechanical tribe, he has another consideration. That is, if he clashes with the mechanical tribe, will it lead to a full-scale war between the Empire and the mechanical tribe coming early? He just wants to take advantage of the war to get some benefits for himself, and to get some benefits for the people around him, and do some research, but he doesn't really want to drag himself into the quagmire of war. He must figure out the consequences of his actions before he can do anything. So Chen Ming immediately called by Quan.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.